he had like a Walmart, like a kid's bow, like not a real bow type of deal. And I guess the guy was like, oh, it's cranked all the way up to 40 pounds, you know? And
wow.
Like,
hey, at least it wasn't a crossbow.
That's right. Yeah. This dude, yeah. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there to help some metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer. And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 214. Nick kept us in line. He's editing. Here and gone.
Oh, yeah, he's working hard, man.
Yeah, working hard, hardly working. Same thing.
Yeah. Hey, thank you guys for being here. Wherever you're listening to us from, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, we really appreciate you guys being here. Give us a like, follow, or subscribe, whatever's appropriate for the channel. One of those will give you a notification as to when we drop these episodes. But they're Tuesday and Thursday nights every week at 6 p.m. Eastern time, regardless. So if you've reached out to us on Instagram, DM, or the website, we appreciate that. Those are the 2 that we try to keep up with, but especially this time of year, you know, we get a little bit behind on it.
Just a smidge.
But bear with us. Yeah, we really appreciate you guys reaching out. And if you've placed an order on the website, we really appreciate that too. Jeremy and I are humbled by the fact that you guys would want to have stuff with our logo on it, and that's kind of cool. And so yeah, that's all on our website if you want to check that out. We got new stuff going up there, like from week to week. It's fun. We got some cool
our water bottles
drop shipping company, and yeah, water bottles are available. Mm-hmm. So
yep,
that's been fun too. So other than that, here we go.
It is. We're filming this on October 22nd. I'm not sure when it drops. Dude,
I feel it's funny because you and I have been friends for a long time now. Mm-hmm. We have a very, like, our dynamic is, it's funny how it's like a marriage relationship in that, you know how like when your wife is really stressed out, you're like, you're mellow for some reason.
Yes.
We have that.
Yeah.
We have that.
Because I'm stressed out and you're mellow right now.
Yeah. And it's not all, it's just the opposite a lot of times too. So, but that's good. Yeah. It's good to have that.
Yeah. Good ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm. Got to keep each other like level, you know?
Yeah. I think if Nick is correct on this is airing on the 29th.
When is this going to air?
Yeah, next week, 29th. So we're pretty much, we're right in there. We're a week out from this.
I predict that I will shoot a buck in Ohio on this week that we're recording this. So the 20, I don't know what today is even, but.
Today's 22nd.
Today as we're recording is the 22nd. I'm going to kill a buck on the 20, this weekend, like the 6th or 7th.
25th or 2nd.
Whatever that is.
6th or 7th? Yeah. 6th or 7th? Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be moving. If not me, somebody in our group. Like I got enough daylight, day walkers, and I got enough good unhunted spots. Yeah. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think they're just covering ground, starting to cover more ground now.
Somehow, Lebrowski has risen through my ranks, and I just feel like he is damn near at the top of bucks I'd like to shoot now. Him and that Trax buck, I think, are who I have literally once I'm working at permission angle, So
have you seen Lebrowski again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was up on that tin shed gas line the other night after dark, but he'll daylight.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you guys are listening,
he only has one eye, so he's he needs all the light he can get.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and reflecting back on the last week, you probably had a lot of nighttime movement because it was hot, but there should have been two distinct spots. It would have been Thursday the 24th and then the 26th and 27th which would have been the best like front base days to see some daylight movement. And I'd say still fairly predictable in terms of like the deer that are coming through and what you're seeing. But, ultimately we're 3 days away or whatever from November. So shit's going to get broken loose here pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'd say it seems like they're fairly settled into, or if they're not already, by the end of this week, they will have settled into like their
like breed range,
fall range for sure. Yeah. I mean, some people see, some farms are just like rut farms,
Yep.
and so like our Illinois farm, I would say we're not even seeing, there's a few bucks, but not all the bucks we'll see, I'm sure, by the end of November. And some farms just are that way, know? So
yeah, just start to shift. And I mean, a lot of it, like that Illinois farm dynamic is crops coming down, right? We're talking not hundreds of acres of crops, like tens of thousands of acres of crops coming down around there, which changes the entire landscape structure. The other thing would be, if you're in whatever big woods or hill country and you've had a pile of acorns, like not that they're necessarily rotting. We talked about that last week with the red oak side especially, but they're getting cleaned up. They're not dropping anymore. They're cleaning them up at this point. And so like your food base changes are going to shift things. Your landscape level cover changes are going to shift things. And then ultimately, they just, some of those farms that have been kind of the doe areas, that's where these bucks are going to come and check out. Frankly, my place here in Pennsylvania is that way. Like I don't have a buck on camera until maybe the third week of September, if not the last week of September. And it's really just like a pop in, pop there. And then like now they'll start just funneling through there because there's a pile of does in there. So yeah, I mean, it's just, you've got these different farms. And if, this week traditionally is also a really good week for new bucks showing up for the rut. And actually like, not just like popping in because they were chasing a doe and cruising through, like actually like popping in and staying around for the next couple weeks.
Isn't it weird how they do that?
Yep.
Yeah. They just like show up. They're like, I'm here to rut.
Yep. And then
that's what Lebrowski did. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's bizarre. Well, some stick around and it seems to change from year to year. I don't really know how to explain that shift. It's interesting how they do that. I assume they just find something they like, or there's an opening like in the social dynamic, or
I think that's a big part of it.
They fit in somewhere,
Yep. I think that's a big part that they can fit in, whether they're a mid-aged deer and they're kind of just like a satellite buck, or, somebody shoots the 5-year-old that's been rolling the farm and, a 4-year-old rolls in and is like, holy shit, I'm king here, And so, yeah, I think that you see that. And then
I really wish I could understand that. I really wish I knew how these bucks felt about each other.
Yeah.
Because like I would have said that GR8 buck is like, that's the oldest buck on the farm. He's 5-year-old. But then Lebrowski showed up like on the 23rd or whatever that was.
He should be 7.
And I'm pretty confident he's 7. And I'm like, how does GR8 feel about that? You know what I mean? Is he like, oh boy, I better give him his space? Or is he like, oh, this dude's like old as jail, I'm not going to.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, at least from a research standpoint, like a lot of these bucks will overlap their home ranges, but they won't overlap their core area. So like you might see the same buck hit like a scrape that essentially is in both of their home ranges, but neither of it is in the core area of the other.
Well, so like I'm pretty confident that I know at where GR8 is bedding or has been bedding, through October. So you would assume, that's probably the preferred core area in that area. I'd be curious to see if like Lebrowski kind of takes that over, or like
I bet he's in it, but I don't know if he'll take it over.
I don't think he will.
I don't think there's a reason to displace him with the habitat available.
I think there's enough. Yeah, just Because
that's the thing is people always say like, we talk about like managing a place or even getting permission on something or whatever. They're like, can you stack mature bucks in a property? And the reality,
you definitely can.
The reality is from a core area standpoint. I mean, it's got to be big, right? But from like an overlapping home range, absolutely. Like if you have what they need, you might have 5 or 6 different mature bucks overlapping on 100 acres if it's the right 100 acres. I mean,
that'd be a lot.
Well, but look at our Illinois farm. I would say in the next week we will have 4 to 6 mature bucks on that camera.
But I don't think those aren't core ranges.
No. I'm not saying that you're going to have core.
Those
I'm saying
are just
that you're going to have
ranges.
Home ranges. Yeah.
I don't even know if you can call a rut range a home range.
It is.
It'd be a temporary, like they're just staying at the Motel 8 like we are, or at the whorehouse, you know?
Well, I mean, not the guys that are going to show up for a night and be gone and you'll never see them again, or a day and they'll be gone and you'll never see them again. Mm-hmm. These ones are sticking around at least for a week or two. And so it's an extended part of their home range to come in there.
Well, but it is different in that, like, it's obviously tailored towards, you know, when you have does in heat, you've got one dominant buck probably holding her down.
Yep.
But I mean, I think it's very easy to say that there could be 3 or 4 bucks satelliting that, and some might be fairly mature.
Especially at this, like when we're dropping this podcast.
Will they? Have you ever seen a 4 or 5 year old like satellite?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that 200 Kansas? I was hunting in Columbus. It was probably a 4-year-old 150-inch 10-point satellite in that buck. Mm-hmm. But that was November 1st. So she could have been the first doe in estrus in the area, potentially.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not in a home range or a core range. They're just where she's at.
Yep.
You know, which is in theory is in line with the thought process of like hunt the does. Do you give that much credence? Like,
hunt the does?
Is that your thought process? You're like, oh, I have... Because you know, right? If I asked you, say, hey, you know about where these doe groups are feeding and what they're doing, do you like try to key in on that during the rut?
At the bookends, early and late. So like early, the more does you have in an area early in the season, the more likely one of those is going into estrus between the 24th and November 1st.
Right.
You know, and to be honest, that's one of the best hunts that you can have, is if you catch that first doe going in estrus, you may see 5 or 7 different bucks.
Yeah.
You know, the woods explode. And then at the end, when a lot of the does have already been bred and those bucks come out and they're nudging multiple does on a food plot or in a feeding area looking for that last one who is still receptive, those are the times that I'm looking at the doe groups. In between that, no, not so much. Because I think there's just so many different does going into estrus at that point.
You can't keep track.
Yeah, you need to be in corridors, in funnels.
It's also hard to know which ones are going to come into
You have no idea.
Estrus first. Yeah, you don't know.
I have no idea. I mean, like I said, I think I said it last podcast or Hunt Companion, but
yeah, you did.
I have one doe.
Behind the house. Yeah.
Yep, behind the house. Sometime between the 24th and the 26th, I think is what it is. She'll go into estrus, and I'll have... I don't know if I might have 1 or 2 new bucks show up, but I definitely have like the 4 to 7, like, and that's everything from a 2-year-old to the 5-year-old back there, like just ripping through the woods, up and down the mountain, just chasing until probably the mature buck is the guy who ends up with her. But that is always, that's usually, and like I said, if she's still alive, like that's typically when I've seen it. And I've hunted in, I think Missouri was the other one. It was like the 26th or 27th of October, and I saw like 12 bucks in a sitting chasing it. Like there was one doe in estrus, and it was wild. So yeah, that first doe coming into estrus is like, and even the second and the third, like, right, it's that bell curve that we talk about. Is like those early ones, like it's wild in the woods, and then you hit that bell curve where all of the does are coming into estrus. And frankly, in most cases, there's not enough bucks to breed all the does coming in, right? That's why you have does cycle and come back in December even. But for most of the people, when that peak happens, it's not as great of hunting as you think. Like it because there's so many does into estrus, the bucks aren't having to compete as hard for that breeding right, basically. As they would in the early part and the late part of the rut. So,
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like from a strategy standpoint, if you're like, man, how do I hunt the rut? It does make sense that you would key in on like some of those doe groups, like early on, like just to start.
Absolutely.
Whether that's bed or food. I mean, you probably have in your mind like an idea of how it's not the does are just basically.
They're just doing the same thing.
They do the same thing all the time. Yeah, if you run cameras long enough or you observe, you start to see like, oh, these does just bed on that hill, and then they pop out in this food plot. And then
I have 4 to 7 does that hit my food plot behind the house almost every evening. Last hour of light with multiple fawns, and they just work that rye field. They come over, they might hit the water hole, and then they go down and they eat acorns and disappear. And they just do that every night.
So I think the thought process is, okay, how is a buck who is either detecting that one of them is, coming into estrus, or is just, on the verge of trying to detect that. How is he going to go in and penetrate that area? Like what?
Yep. I think most
they
of
don't
them
mess
already,
around with it.
Most of them already know the area. Not that they've just dove straight, but they're creating their scrapes. The
so what is it? Do you think
it.
though? Do you think they're like, okay, those does bed there. I'm just going to go right to the bedding area, like in the afternoon, or
no?
You know what I mean?
I think he starts checking like 48 to 72 hours before she comes in.
Because I haven't seen any cruising yet on my cameras. I'm not seeing any cruising like that stuff you start seeing.
Yep. And I don't think that you see that. We've talked. I think Rising was the guys. I think that the first doe coming in the estrus and like the dominant buck kind of have like a preemptive agreement here.
Yeah.
Like it kind of just happens, And if you think about that, it's
you think
like
he goes to her, or she goes to him.
I don't know. I think
they probably just meet up in a common space. I bet you.
I think that he's passed through her area.
And I bet it's overnight.
Yeah. I think he's passed through her area and is like, not yet, but soon. Soon.
It's coming.
Yeah. It's coming.
Yeah. You see me?
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. You start seeing the third drag mark in the leaves. It's coming.
Yeah.
And then
check out this nut.
Yeah. And so I think he passes through. He's gonna hit those scrapes, right? He's leaving that communication in there, and then I think he just kind of picks her up at that point.
How big of an indicator do you think the scrapes are?
Huge.
Do you think that's the first thing that they pick? They're like, there's estrus in my scrape.
Coincidentally or not, and this is on a handful of mountain cameras here in the last 2 days. I've had multiple mature does hitting scrapes in the last couple of days, which
interesting.
Which licking branches. Not,
I have not seen
not
that
peeing
yet.
in the scrapes or anything, but hitting the licking branches and stuff. Like definitely a communication type of thing here.
Yeah.
Not saying that I haven't had them in the past, but in the last 2 days, more of them coming up.
Well, now that you say that, I mean, I haven't had a lot of does hitting scrapes. Period. Maybe that will start to happen this coming week or so. I've seen a lot of bucks. You know what I mean? Very, especially on the vine scrapes, dude. I
shuffling them out.
Really happy with how those have panned. They just like those things.
Yeah. No, and it's, in fact, I've got a couple where it's like, I haven't had a buck on it in 3 days, but I've had does hitting it. Interesting.
Indeed.
So yeah, I think that there's a communicate, and I mean, who knows how powerful these pheromones are that are actually floating around the air. Like it could be, he could be 500 yards down in a ditch, and like those thermals drop it right down, and he's like, game on, and he's up there. But I do think the dominant buck, all of the work that he's done and led up to this point as a pre-rut standpoint, pays off in that the first doe's his, basically. How
aware do you think a mature buck or any buck is of like their status? Like, so in the same way that bucks gain like 20% testosterone the day they shed velvet, whether or not that's a detectable just from deer to deer, I don't know if it is. Do you think a buck can tell like when you're a month out? Like, not that he knows to the day, but he's just like, he can tell that they're getting close.
I think he can tell they're getting close. In terms of his status,
in terms of, is it a range into estrus, or is it like now?
No, I think it's a range. Yep, I think it's a range. I think there's definitely a build up to where she's receptive but not ready, essentially. So, and I think at that point is where you see some of this like daylight cruising in an area, is like he's got to be ready. She's receptive to it. She's not running from him, right? But she's also not like, hey, let's go and take our little secret hidey hole here for a while. It's not that kind of thing. And the biggest
so you think they know? That's what I mean. Like a week before.
Yep.
I wouldn't call that cruising necessarily, but you think they're checking in on him, like he knows it could be any day now.
And again, maybe he's not up there nuzzling her, but he's checking the areas she's been in.
Sure,
absolutely, and she's leaving scent behind that's telling if she's ready or not. For sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And I do think that the biggest sign for a lot of people, if you're running cameras or you're in the stand, is like adult does without fawns or fawns by themselves.
Sure.
When you start seeing, minus they got hit by a car or somebody killed them, like, you start seeing those fawns cruising by themselves, especially like the button bucks and stuff. It's like mom's either about ready or she's being tended to. Don't knock on the door.
Yeah. Cowboy hat
on the door. So yeah, I mean, it's I think we're kind of at that point where, you know, these pheromones are coming. And I mean, you know, with that, and I think that I know it's photo period driven as well, but you know, I think a lot of those pheromones start to fly around in the air at this time, you know, this 24th to 31st of October. And boy, some of these bucks are just really blowing up. Like, I mean, just putting straight, like no neck anymore, straight shoulders to head type of thing. And, you know, photo period is changing. Days are getting shorter at the same time. But I think all of that really starts to come in. The amount of sign that's getting laid down right now is insane. You know, so it's just, there's this just huge thing. I do think from a hierarchical standpoint, the buck at this point has established he's the dominant dude. Now, could somebody else come in and change that? For sure. But you're gonna have a throwdown if that happens. Everybody else in the area kind of knows, like, they know their place. Somebody gets shot, changes the entire structure. But at least as of right now, I'd say your mature buck in an area knows that he's like, I got dibs on number one.
And I just think that social dynamic is so interesting. Like,
it's the least understood,
especially when you shoot
too.
one. Like, how, like, they don't know
No.
immediately, but
Eventually.
So what is the thought process there? They're like, are they surprised to be like, you know what I mean? It's funny to think about a deer being surprised, but just they're like,
yeah.
How long does it take them to be like,
go?
Okay, I'm the man now?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I would assume there's a time frame there where like that buck's glandular scent and stuff remains, and eventually it's not refreshed, and then it becomes like, okay, like,
where's Jim?
Yeah, and I mean that you know, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old is going to come up and crush that scrape and start laying his down and like, anybody gonna top me on this? You know, and check it, and eventually, you know, either somebody else moves in or he does assume that role of top breeder in that area. But that social dynamic is so, and again, this is all subjective, right? Where this is kind of just
fun to think about.
Yeah, it's just what we think about. But like, you know, we know that the hormones and pheromones are super powerful on these things. We know that their ability to detect like the scent and actually like understand those pheromones from a communication side are enormous. I mean, even if you just look at like, you know, whatever, mature doe in a food plot, she stomps. The moment she stops, that interdigital gland just pours out pheromones into that area. Any buck that comes through there knows, like, hey, something was no good here. Just like that.
Yeah. Karen was here.
Bitch.
Well, it's funny, too, to think about their personalities. Like, there's no way to prove this, so I'll go ahead and guarantee it. I'll bet you some bucks, just their personality is they're more risk takers when it comes to like,
yeah,
I'll slip in there. That dude won't know I'm here. You know what I mean? As far as like, I know they might know or be aware of another dominant buck, but they're like, he's not going to see me. Like, I'm just going to slip in, see what's up real quick. And other ones are probably like, I would not go in there.
Yeah,
dude.
I'm not going to step in.
I would not touch that.
Well, I think some of those bucks are just willing to get their ass beat for a chance to breed, you know? And there's still a giant percentage of research that shows like, even during those breeding cycles where a mature buck is locked down with a doe, that a 1-year-old will slip in and breed that doe and be out of there before he knows it, because he's chasing a 2 or 3-year-old off.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely happens. Yeah.
So, you know, the multiple paternity thing on deer is incredible. I think it's like north of 20% in a lot of cases where it's like a fawn is from 2 different bucks, you know? And so, yeah.
Well, wait a minute. No, 2 different fawns would be from 2 different bucks.
Yeah, 2 different.
Not one fawn.
Yeah, no. Two fawns. Does have 2 fawns. One's from different bucks. Yep. And so yeah, I mean it's just a weird cycle when you get into that. But I think that, you know, this early stuff, which is what we're talking about here, as this kind of drops, is I think it's real predetermined in a lot of cases. Like, I think everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks has laid the groundwork to what's going to happen when, you know, Karen goes into estrus, essentially.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a rumbling amongst the community. Yeah, they all know what's coming. It's not like just like us, we go on the weekends, or we
Right.
slept in there and we're like, oh, what's happening now?
Yeah.
They're like, this is what we do.
Yeah,
like it's what we've
we
been
know.
doing.
This is our house. This is our community. We know who the boss is in the area.
It's super interesting too to like, just all the way down the breeding chain here to see bucks from year to year that like are from or have some genetics from.
Oh yeah.
Like that deer that we're talking, is he 2 or 3? There's no way he's not 3. I'd have to again. I'm gonna have to go back and.
It's last year's history that's throwing me off on that.
Yeah,
deer.
besides the point, though, however old that deer is, he is a spitting image of that unicorn buck.
Yep.
That got killed. I mean, a spitting image. He's a little better
I'm
than
sure
him.
that's the offspring.
A little better than him as a 3-year-old. Yeah, whether it's a direct offspring or,
I'm sure it's direct offspring.
Direct offspring? Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Well,
that was 3 years ago, right?
No, I don't think it was that long ago.
I thought it was 3.
That sounds like a long time ago. I would have guessed only a year or 2. So I guess, yeah.
2022 season would be...
I guess, yeah, that's very possible.
2 years ago.
He could have bred a doe then, I guess, whatever that math is, as a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
We're calling him Temptation.
Is that what you're calling him?
I've been really bad at naming. Yeah, and Dale and Dad seem to want to like take initiative and name them. I'm like, I don't care. Fine, go for it. Which is, I'm glad they're doing, because I've been calling them like
Don't kill him.
Tight Rack 8 or the 10.
Don't kill this one or I'll punch you in the balls.
Just because it's like, it's hard, because unless something happens, like you don't want to force a name.
Mm-hmm. Do you usually have new bucks show up a lot in the rut on your place?
Not usually, no.
Really? It's probably just because I think of the number of bucks you have on that property as it sits, right?
I guess talk to me in a month, I would say there are generally a handful, but I think they move in more in October.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a new one show up at the original Clover the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a 3-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and just never seen him before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we'll see him through the month of November and stuff. So same with Lebrowski.
Yep.
Hadn't seen him until a week ago. And so they show up. There's that other one that was over at the tile lake.
Mm-hmm.
That I bet you will show up
sometime
on the Roberts
next week or
at
so.
some point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It was interesting. Like, I think it was 4 last year. And as a 3-year-old, he showed up and stayed. He was there quite a bit. But last year, he showed up one day and then gone. But I know he's alive. I saw him this year again as a 5-year-old. And so, yeah, I'll be curious to see if he shows what, in what capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know. They do. Definitely. Like the further, like that Ramsey, like I don't have a buck there over 3 years old that I know of.
So somebody will move in there.
Like that buck that I passed at Grassy Knoll last year, he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
He'll show up there at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess they kind of do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Corn piles help.
Yeah, for sure.
He put a corn pile out. Yeah, lots of new bucks.
Yeah, lots of new bucks show up. Because a lot of people are, I won't call it false hope, but they bank on like bucks are going to show up. Like I'm gonna get new bucks. Very possible. I think in the big woods areas especially, very common because those deer just start putting the miles on, and it's just big contiguous acreage and yeah. So like my Kentucky, I get some. I just had a couple show up. Ohio, I get a lot of new bucks that show up, but they're there and gone in a handful of days. Pop in, gone. Kentucky, usually they stay for most of the season at this point. But, I say that because I still think that at least for the next week, so maybe into the first part of November, if I don't have them, I'm looking for them. Like I'm going out to find them. I'm not waiting for them to come to me.
Sure.
At some point, you kind of have to settle in and just, hey, here's what I got. Now I got to hone in and kill one of these deer.
Agreed.
But I think there's still time of if you don't have them, I'm not saying pick up and move, but maybe you leave something where you're at. But I would be going out and looking for them here because if you find them and you can make a move on them quick, you can kill them fast too.
Mm-hmm. I think historical data is a big part of it. You know,
Yep.
I mean, if you
Agree.
like, that's why I'm not stressed out about Illinois. Is like last year we had a lot of good deer move in during the rut.
Mm-hmm.
You know, say what you want about the antler class and stuff, you know, and we're working on that, trying to shoot some of the older, smaller antler deer and stuff. But regardless, we had multiple shooters show up at the end of October and into November.
Yes.
And so I'm not out there looking for bucks, like, you know.
Yeah, well, that's a harder.
they're not there.
It's a harder place to do it too, because it's like, well, we're restricted to 144 acres. That's what we have.
Well, yes, more than a lot of people have.
Yep.
You know,
and that's what it is. So I guess I'm thinking more if you're in big woods or you're getting more permission or you have public or whatever, like you can get boots on the ground and go and look for stuff.
Oh yeah.
If you're on an 80, there's not really a ton of reason to go and like stomp through a bedding area and look for a buck.
Well, just the trick is to recognize it for what it is. And it may take a few years to understand what a farm sets up like.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a rut farm and just a rut farm, great.
Yeah.
Maximize it for rut hunting and go find other farms to hunt
early
in October.
Yep.
You know, or late season. Or try to develop it, you know, with food and stuff to be more of an all-season property.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you can do that or not, Illinois is a good test. But
yeah, I mean, but our hope is, I mean, not that it didn't work out, but it wasn't as consistent as I think we thought maybe in the early season. So we'll see what the food does in the late season.
Yeah. Again, I'm kind of like, it takes these deer time. Like, it's not like they're like,
to find
we have no habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could take a whole year. Like, there are bucks probably that haven't been even on the farm that will show up that will be like, this place is pretty nice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I would agree.
And if we kill some of the older, you know, smaller, you know, some of them probably will stay. Not all of them, but.
Sure. No, I think that's a big one. Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing that we talked about.
Look at that flyer buck on my Ohio piece. I'm like, granted, I don't know exactly who that is, but I'm pretty confident he was not spending as much time on us last year as he is this year.
Yeah, because he's found a spot.
Yeah, just because we've continued to do work and we have more food and there's room for him. And and we shot that other big 4-year-old off there last year. You know, maybe he's part of it.
Yep.
The Hunter Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
That's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got the, so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance.
Sure.
The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt, it stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt. There's a lot of people, you know, we talk about Illinois. Our farm, I don't think necessarily has fallen into the situation, but there's been a lot of people in central Illinois into east central Illinois, especially where EHDs hit, is like, boy, as crazy as it seems, is like they don't have deer. Like their deer numbers are just like really like non-existent essentially. And you know, having conversations with a couple of these guys, I don't really know what the solution is, right? Like I'm in a similar situation in my Kentucky properties, which is kind of funny. Somebody asked the other day if we would do like a field day, like a habitat field day or something. I was like, maybe. Like my Kentucky farm would look awesome for it because the deer aren't eating any of the food. Like it's just, you know, I've got like great food plots. My beans look great. Like the layout and structure of my screening is great.
You got any bait on that? Any feed? Are you feeding there?
I've got one feeder on 275.
On the acreage, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Curious if that would turn anything up.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people are baiting around me, for sure. I don't know. I mean, that maybe. Like, I'm just looking at all the food I have, like from beans to alfalfa to rye and brassica and annual clover, and I'm like, there's plenty of food.
It's hard to know. I'm curious how
Maybe.
I'm curious how devoted a buck would be to a feeder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it was a reliable food source or even a bait, whatever it looked like. I mean, it's definitely more attractive. Like that's
Sure.
that's the point of it. If I were to dump this thing, and
Yep.
I'm curious if they would develop like a range around that. You know, because like for instance, there's a property a few miles to the south of us in Ohio that they don't do food plots or anything. They just dump mounds and mounds and mounds of corn. I mean, there's during the fall, there's always like 20,000 pounds of corn there. Like it's, and there have been bucks there that, to my knowledge, like almost never leave. Like, because he's got pictures of bucks that none of the neighbors do.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
You know, and I'm within range of that deer. Like he could come up and he could see, like, I have natural food sources. And it's too far away to say like, oh, it's clear as day. He's clearly choosing this. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm just curious how big of an impact that can have. Because I will tell you, when we do put corn piles out, they definitely pull in deer that I don't have pictures of yet.
Sure.
That buck I passed on Grassy Knoll, for instance, he was standing on a corn pile. We were shooting does.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll dump them leading up to gun season to try to pull them in and you know, keep some alive. Frankly, so.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it very well could. Like I've kind of been at the mindset of like, okay, well, I planted beans. I thought, and again, I say that because there's like no ag around me. I thought maybe that would pull in more deer in the summer with all those standing beans. Didn't. And I think they just aren't moving far enough to find it. They don't
need to either. They have more than they need browse-wise and stuff. I think the test for you will be, and maybe a season's come and gone, and you already saw this, but I think after all the browse is dried up, all the corn piles are gone, I think that's where your property shines. I think property move in there.
Yeah, and we just didn't have a cold enough year last year. Like, you know, I had a bunch of standing corn and like they didn't eat. I mean, they ate a bunch of it, but they didn't eat most of it. I found a bunch of sheds last year, which was cool. Like that clearly held those deer late season.
Well, there you go. I mean, sheds fall off of deer's heads, so deer must have been there.
Yeah, and I say that because
that's a strong indicator.
Yeah, and not to say that like in an ungrateful way or anything, but it's like it's the same bucks that I've seen. I see them. They don't leave. Like they do leave, but it's the same deer. Like I don't see new deer come in. Nobody surprises me. The only ones that have surprised me is every year since one, I was under contract. The second year I owned it is I've had one really good buck, like north of 50s, show up for one day each year. And it's not the same deer, but I had an 11 point that was high 50s, and I had a 9 point that was probably mid 50s last year, and just kind of passing through the outskirts of it. And I would hope that like I'm like, oh man, they should be like, this farm looks awesome, like we should stay here, and they didn't. And it's probably because they were just like I'm on the outer range of where they're cruising through for looking for does or whatnot. I think part of it is like I'm still trying to build the deer population back up.
How's the bedding habitat on that Kentucky farm?
Not bad. I need to do some major TSI work on it. Like I haven't done the only thing I've done is add food right now.
Clear cut anything yet?
Nope.
I bet that would do it.
Yeah, I think it would have a big impact on it.
I'd go in there and clear cut some knobs, and I'll bet you they
I don't
suck
really
right
have
in
any knobs. Like I have just big valleys.
No knobs, no slobs.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah. Sounds right. Is that for deer hunting or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's for deer hunting.
No knobs. What do you mean? It's Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, I do, but the knobs, like the top is all of my food and stuff. And then it drops down into the bottoms off of that. And
then no other knobs.
No.
Where are they bedding? Where do you think deer on that property would bed?
On the slopes, on the leeward ridges.
Well, slopes lead to knobs, though.
Yeah, but the top is open field. So what would be the knob on the top is all open field. Or planted at this point. Yeah.
How much food do you have planted on that property? Like acreage. You said it's a 235 acre farm.
275, give or take. I have probably 15 acres planted.
Okay, so there's knobs untouched. There's knobs out there.
No, it's a giant valley. It's a 135 acre valley, basically.
Okay. And then
it's ridges.
I mean, obviously it does slope up to, ridges. Well, okay, that would make sense because Kentucky does have is it the sharp ridges are your property lines? Oh, okay.
A lot of them. And then I have saddles that come in and out of the property.
How about benches?
Yep, there's plenty of benches in there.
Okay. So there you go.
Yep.
I'd pick some of the prime bedding spots. I'd clear cut them.
Yep.
Like no trees. I'll bet you they suck right in there.
I just don't think there's a lot of deer in that county at all.
Well, that's fine, but you have some, and so you're working on building. I would say it sounds to me like bedding habitat is maybe a limited resource.
It is.
You know, you've got the food, and you have some deer from time to time. But maybe not enough bedding habitat to sustain like a really healthy
probably not
buck population.
Yeah, no, probably not. Not nearly to what it could be. Yep. So yeah, I mean that's part of the off-season project is TSI.
I don't know that there's any better deer, like management, whatever tactic or tool than a clear cut. I think that's one of the best things you can do for them. From a bedding standpoint.
Yeah.
You disagree?
No, I mean I think a large clear cut doesn't do as much as pocket cuts can do.
Why did I say large?
Huh?
I didn't say large. Just any.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just. And so, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I'm just because of, again, like we talked about earlier, these overlapping core areas for bucks. You don't want a 2 acre clear cut. Sure, they could kind of coexist in there, but they don't really want to. That's tight quarters.
Oh, yeah. That's small.
Yeah,
small would be 2 would be small.
Now, I mean, I've cut like in Ohio. I did a 2, a 2, and a 3, which were all pines. And I mean, I'm sure I probably have a mature buck laying in each of those right now.
Yeah.
But it's just because of what's around it, habitat wise, and frankly, because they just chipped like 300 acres, so there's no cover, on 300 acres, pretty close by. So yeah, I mean they'll pack in there for sure, but yeah, I think you just have to make sure that you're doing it in the right places. Like most of those are on leeward ridges for anything on a westerly or northwesterly wind. The cuts that I did.
It's interesting, like to consider that. Like I don't really do anything on hillsides. You know what I mean?
That's like all I have. So
I know that's why I'm struggling.
If I have flat ground, it's probably getting planted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But not your benches in the woods.
Well, they're just small.
How small?
Like this room.
Oh, yeah. That's a small bench.
Yeah.
Really? Everything else is a hill?
Yep.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I guess you're screwed. I don't know. What about in the bottom? What's the bottom?
Just a creek and some hemlocks and stuff down there.
How basin-like?
Not basin-like.
Steep to the creek.
Not steep, but I mean it's a pretty good gradual down to there. There's a real nice hub that I'm setting up. When you were talking about baiting and stuff, it's like, man, if I could
dump me a nice corn pile.
Yeah, if I could get 2,000 pounds of corn down
How do
there.
I get my F-250 in there?
Yeah, if I could take a dump truck down there and dump it, like that would for sure be a spot. Just because of the way that there's like 3 or 4 drainages that come together right there. And I know that they use those.
Well, that sounds like a spot you'd want to keep to hunt rather than to clear cut it.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, there's plenty of ridges the whole way around.
Well, freaking dude, just go where the deer are now. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it. Like, figure out where the bucks are bedding now and go clear cut that area.
I do have on the west side. I do have 1 or 2 really good knobs. West side. I do have 1 or 2 really good knobs on that, and I actually have done some cutting over there, and they are thicker, and they definitely bed off of that. That's where that 5-year-old came off of on first weekend.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, it's small. It's 1.5 acres up there before it drops off.
Okay.
So
something.
And it's probably one of the only spots that I have oaks as well.
Have you? You haven't timbered the Kentucky property? Is it? Will you timber it at some point?
It's probably not great. I mean, there's some money on it, but not a lot. I would try to trade it to do my TSI work. Because
were you talking about doing equip on that?
Yeah, that's
they have
one.
equip in Kentucky.
Yep, I've got the guy coming in right after season.
Well, there you
opens,
go.
so.
That sounds like maybe your next big project.
It is. Yeah, the food thing I think I've got down. Like, I mean, my beans look great. You know, we talked about that drought and then getting some of those timely rains. I mean, the amount of pods that those beans put on it's awesome.
Do you hunt those benches? Or not really?
No, it's tough access.
Yeah.
Yep. And if they are bedding on those benches, like I'm hunting the food source up above them.
I bet some water holes out there would be amazing.
I put one in. I've got a pond and I've got another one established. It's just not filled yet.
Yep. So my diagnosis for that ever seeing the farm is you need to not clear cut the whole thing, obviously, but
make some serious
cut
cuts.
the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Not cut the whole thing, but cut it all.
Not all the trees, but you know what I mean? TSI the whole thing and clear cut a few strategic clear cuts, you know.
Yep.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 or 20 acres probably.
Yep.
And some strategic water holes. And I think you could build a deer herd around that. I think you have the water source, or you have the food source for it.
It is I mean, you know, I've only had this farm. So I closed on that farm in December of 22. So I didn't hunt that year. So last year was the first year we hunted on it. And I had 2 4-year-olds, a couple 3-year-olds, and like maybe a couple 2-year-olds. Like I probably had 6 or 7 bucks on that property. I'd say I probably have 17 or 18 bucks on that property this year. That
progress.
One of the 4-year-olds made it to 5. The other one I think got shot, which sucks because he would have been a stud.
Yeah.
I sent you what I think is a giant 3-year-old. You thought might be 4. That's a super wide one with like heavy bases. I think
I'd like to see some more pictures of that deer.
And then I've got a 10-point that's a 3-year-old. I've got a big 9-point that I haven't seen in a little while, but I think he just kind of shifts off of me. And I think then I've got a pile of 2 and 1-year-olds. So like I'm starting, like slowly but surely, you're starting to see that herd build. You know, and again, I would hope with having those beans and stuff here, if we get a cold snap in like November, like we get like, you know, a week of 30-degree temperatures towards Thanksgiving, I bet they suck into those beans and stuff hardcore. And in December as well. I bet they magnet into those beans pretty strong. So yeah, I mean, I love the farm from like I was flying the drone the other day, just getting some. It looks like if you looked at the farm, you'd be like, holy shit, that's a deer hunting farm.
Yeah, and
there's just no deer on it. So that tends to be the dramatic issue.
Oh, there's some. There's more than there was last year.
There's more than there was last year. There is a 5-year-old on there, which would be my number one target.
Freaking, that's more than a lot of people can say. You had a 5-year-old on there?
Yep, and I've seen that deer since he was 3. Like the year that I was under contract, I had him on camera a lot. I had him on camera a lot last year. I've seen him in person already this year. I do think that there's probably a couple bucks that will show up sometime in the next couple weeks on there, just because of. I also think in tandem with having more bucks, I've got a lot more does on that property. So going back to like, you know, are these bucks going to target areas where does are? You know, I've got some pretty substantial doe groups on there. You know, 4 here, 5 adults there that I think could pull some bucks in from some neighboring properties. And it's got good genes. That's the other thing. Like I sent you that 1-year-old 10-point.
Yeah.
Those 3-year-olds are all probably north of 135 as 3-year-olds, maybe pushing 40.
I think it's a bedding habitat thing.
Yep, I would agree. That's the big one. And frankly, it's too much for me to chainsaw. So I need like a crew, like an equip crew to like go through and do it. There's a lot of chainsaw work.
Yeah, sure.
On that.
Yeah, that'd be the way to do it.
So yeah, so that's the project on that side that you kind of start to see as the season progresses, and you know, again, we've talked about it before. It's that count. It's a weird county too. It's like, you know, there won't be more than 130 bucks checked in that county all year, and won't be more than 30 does checked in.
Yeah, but I don't think it matters. Like,
yeah,
I think you have enough acreage there.
I do. Yep.
It's a lot of work, obviously, but you can, if there's deer there, you can make habitat so that more deer will be there.
The cutting stuff, if I've seen anything, and it would be in Ohio, in a single year, the response of the deer from a cutting is like, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. The amount of bucks that are on that property, the amount of just pure deer that are on that property through an epic drought where my food plots were non-existent. The browse sustained all of those deer through the whole drought in the summertime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, the clear cuts are, I've seen enough of them that that's where the deer are. What I don't know is long term what is next, because it's not like you just clear cut it again. It doesn't go back. I think burning is probably
which is good when you're in an equip program. If that is part of it, is the first round will be a manual setback, which is cutting, and usually then the second phase of that, whether it's 3 to 5 years later, will be a woodland burn, which is what you want. Set that all back and really regenerate those briars and habitat type stuff. I've got 2 or 3 old fields that this is the second year that I'm just kind of letting them go as well. Little Craig Harper, let him go.
Let it grow,
just let them go, man. And they're starting to look a little CRP nastiness. I'm starting to get some briars and small trees popping up in there.
Whoa, sorry. I smashed my face up my mic.
Knock a tooth out again.
See that coming, yeah.
So yeah, it'll be good. I did have I've got probably high 40s 9-point that showed up on the mountain property. So that was cool. Behind the cabin. I sent you. Yeah. Yep. So that was cool.
Sounds like you got a ton of bucks to hunt, dude.
Starting to get there. Yeah. Just,
a high 40s 9-point. That's a giant.
Yep. It's a good deer. Really good deer. So I don't know.
That's the one you sent me the other day. I'm going to contest your measurement. Although, send me some other pictures. Yeah, I thought, let me see them.
You think it was smaller than high 40s?
I have to see other pictures here. You know what you're talking about, so.
Yeah, he could be.
I would guess low 40s.
Low 40s?
But I don't know. It's one picture. It's one angle. Who knows?
So the deer that I still haven't seen that deer that I found the shed off of, which is kind of tearing me up right now, because that's the only one I really cared about all season.
When did he show up the past 2 years?
September.
Oh, interesting.
Well, not 2 years, just one. I don't know him from the year before.
Did he hang around at all?
Through early October, mid-October, and then showed back up in December.
Interesting.
Yep. Yes, I don't know. And it sucks because it's I found a shed, so you would think you made it through.
You would think, but dude, I don't know, man.
He did drop it early. Dropped that shed in mid-December.
It's pretty early.
So, but he didn't look sickly or anything.
Did you see Skip posted pictures of his buck from 4 to 7.5?
No.
It's pretty interesting.
Was it?
Yeah, he was a freaking giant at 5.
Yeah, that was when he was 207 or something like that.
Yep, and then still a big deer. I think he was I think he said he was in the 190s or something, but he definitely went downhill as a 6-year-old, and then blew back up as a 7. It's just cool. It's just interesting to see once animals reach that maximum age class. Now it's now it's an antler game. It's how healthy are they? How stressed were they at the end of the season?
The bottom line there is though that 99% of us talking and listening to this podcast will never have enough protection to get them there.
Well, yeah, my 7-year-old is 130 inches.
Which is still
because nobody wants to shoot him.
The fact that he made it to 7 is unfreaking believable.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, there are plenty of deer that just have a cave to go into and make it year after year. That's the thing that bugs me on some of these spots and stuff. And I'm sure same with yours. I think you have a lot more hunting pressure around you to where if a deer disappears, it's he probably got shot. And some of my area, we were just talking about in that Kentucky farm, that buck from last year, it's man, I know 3 or 4 of the people that hunt around me, and there isn't that many more. I'm how the hell? Maybe he got poached. That's an option. Maybe he just died because deer just die. But it's just those are the ones that eat me up. That deer from last year should be all over 70s this year. And it's just like,
I bet he's out there. I bet the acorns have something to do with it.
again, that picture I just showed you, and who knows, but like my neighbor's the one who said like, man, I saw the biggest buck I've ever seen in Kentucky. It probably wouldn't make you say that. That picture I just showed you.
Not me, but the HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of lone wolves for many years, the original lone wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we're using the 0.5 and the 0.75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? Here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, you know, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the DeQuistos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the lone wolf.
Where were we?
Well, we were just kind of wrapping up on your Kentucky farm there.
So that's it. I mean, it's the week of the 27th. The hardest part about Kentucky, and we were just talking about this with our schedules, is the gun season opens the 9th. So, like, I was looking at the weather, and I'm like, I was going to go Thursday, the 24th, but I'm like, it's not that big of a drop. But now in retrospect, it's like, man, if I don't go Thursday, I don't know if I'll get to bow hunt that again till after gun season because of the way the schedule lays out for everything. So
yeah, they slip away, man.
Yeah.
Like you and I were talking this morning, like we're easily,
we're booked till Thanksgiving.
Not booked, but have it fairly mapped out through Thanksgiving.
Which is fine.
Whether that's how it happens or not.
I'm comfortable with the late season out there, but I mean, for sure, I miss some opportunities there if I don't go out. But like, you can't force it either. It can't be like, okay, well, I got to go out these next 2 days. It's 70 degrees. Like, I'm not going to see shit anyways.
Yeah. Well, you just have to you killed one already, man. That's awesome. A lot of people don't kill a deer in a season.
Yep.
Or a buck anyways, So we, I think, are looking pretty good. Like, I would love to kill an Ohio buck before, this Midwest thing kind of starts.
By the time this drops, you might have.
I might have. But if I don't, my mindset going in is like, I don't feel like I have to kill a buck, even, So, like Bomar in Iowa has been like throwing these deer in front of my face. He's like, you should come kill this one. You should come kill this one. And I'm like, part of me is like, I really want to.
Yeah.
But the other part of me is like, and that's what I told him. I was like, dude, I would rather not kill a deer and go out and us do it together because it takes 5 years to draw, and we have other places where I'm like high odds that I'm, going to kill one. So
yeah. And we can hit Illinois on the way there or back.
Yeah. That's an important thing to keep in mind is it's just not don't make it about the deer.
Yeah.
I understand big deer are awesome and but it's more awesome to, have a say in your season and and your sanity throughout it, and so, and you can decide just to be like, I'm not going to do it for the deer. I'm going to do it the way we want to do it.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two outlooks I always have on it.
And I'm glad I didn't do that because a giant showed up this morning.
Correct.
I could be out there right now chasing a tight racked,
awesome
great deer, but not that deer. And we could go out and do that together.
Yep.
So here's the foreshadowing. We'll probably go and hunt that farm and you and I one of us will crack that giant.
Yep.
And it'll be awesome. And that's what I want out of it rather than
just to go out to kill a deer and
go out to
kill
a deer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we kind of talk about a lot is the camaraderie aspect of things is super important in this. And I think that I kind of loop or just lump people into three different groups. Right? There's three different groups out there. Okay. There's the and I'll put myself in I'm kind of in two buckets, but one group is
I can think of so many buckets.
Yeah. I'm going to just go three general buckets.
Okay.
One bucket.
Of deer hunters or people in general?
I'm just going to say deer hunters.
Okay.
Deer hunters. There's one group that is extremely focused on killing the buck. And to a point, I could say generally it might be a buck, but it's like, it's a good one. It's the
buck.
Yep. And so I would assume in most cases, like, we're in that bucket. In the middle is like...
Well, I wouldn't say we're in that bucket. I wouldn't say I'm in that bucket.
That you want to kill the buck?
Well, if your next bucket is a buck...
No, the next bucket is not a buck. The next bucket is more of the camaraderie guy.
Okay.
That's like, you know, he wants to kill a deer, but as important is like just being with the right people. Okay, so
that would be on the far other spectrum, I would say.
Yep, pretty much. Then there's like the buck guy, which frankly is the one I get in arguments with because they'll be like, well, I'm just hunting for meat. And I'm like, well, then why'd you kill a buck? You can't kill a doe. And they're like, well, I want to kill a buck. And I'm like,
a buck.
Exactly.
Okay, so I would call those tag fillers.
Yep. Nothing wrong with them.
No regard for size.
Yep.
Really. Just
punch and tag.
Just a buck.
They'll kill a legal buck every year if they get the opportunity.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, see, I'd say I'm in all three buckets.
To a point.
Because I'm, granted, there are bucks, small handful of them that I'm like, those are the ones I'm after. But it's not one buck. And there are situations where I'll choose the camaraderie and put somebody else on that buck.
Sure. Which is cool, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even still, like, that camaraderie aspect in a case like Iowa, like...
But I don't feel like I need to fill the tag. That's right. Because I'm in that bucket in that I will kill almost not any mature buck, but I'm hunting a mature buck, not just that one.
Well, that's where, like, people have that conversation. The people have asked us. They're like, well, what are you killing in Iowa? And it's like, well, I don't feel, especially in I'm fortunate enough, like, I killed a really good Ohio buck that was a target for me this year. It was like, hey, that's a buck I want to kill. I'm not going to go to Iowa and kill a 130-inch 3-year-old just because I'm like, well, I'm not drawing for 6 more years. Like, that's not my...
Sure, that doesn't resonate with me either.
I don't have any reason to do that,
right?
Like, at all. Will I shoot a 130-inch 7-year-old? Yeah, if it comes down to it. Like, that's a mature buck, and, like, why not?
Yeah.
But that's not why I'm going.
Right.
Like, I'm going to Iowa to experience the land of giants.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
To have the experience and the adventure.
That's it. And
and your goal is, or I should say my goal, is to shoot a 5-year-old buck. And because it's Iowa...
With, good antlers, hopefully.
Yeah, I would like for him to have, whatever. Well, I don't know.
Probably north of 50.
It depends what's out there. Yeah, I would say north of 50, probably.
Yep.
But not necessarily. But also, if there's a 4-year-old and he's 200 inches or 180 inches, like, I might shoot that one.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So.
Yeah, Iowa is kind of weird because I would say it's the one place right now where and I mean, maybe Illinois a little bit, but Iowa for sure where I'm like, I'm not, it's usually completely against my personality to just be out there hunting bucks, like plural.
Yeah. Like, I'm hunting bucks.
Yeah. Like, I'm normally, it's like, this is the deer that I'm going to hunt, which frankly is why I'm a little bit scattered here on October 22nd is like, I don't have a buck on we talked about like where your home farm.
What else is new?
Yeah. I don't have a buck where I'm like, like that's a deer that I'm like, I'm putting my time in.
Can you remember in October 22nd where you weren't like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Like, well, I don't have the buck.
Usually I have a buck that I'm like, hey, that's a deer I'm spending my time on. And I don't, and part of that
I can't remember one since that Pennsylvania buck. There's been bucks that have like caught your interest and you're like, oh yeah. But like you never take them as seriously. Well, maybe the Columbus buck, but even
Columbus, but I was kind of handicapped on that one. I couldn't hunt it nearly as much. The Pennsylvania buck a few years ago that I was hunting that was all over 70 was a monster. And that
was the last one I remember having a real cat and mouse with. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that deer ate me up for a long time, still to this day, because it's one of those deer that just nobody killed it and it's gone. Yeah. I don't like that. Yeah, but I thrive in those situations. That's what I need.
That's what you want.
That's why I mean, dude, I've walked almost 27 miles in the last 2 weeks on the mountain looking for that situation. And again, I say that because I don't feel like I'm gonna stumble on a 160-inch, 5-year-old on the mountain, maybe, but at least something that I'm like, that's the one. That's the one I'm going to go after.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm in favor of that, but also the risk is, you can search yourself right out of a season.
I know. Well, that's why I said I think I've got, by the time this drops, I've got like 5 or 6 more days if I haven't found one before I have to go and I do. I have 2 4-year-olds and a 5-year-old I'd hunt and kill on public for sure. I'll take all of my cameras that I have and I'll hone them in on those 3 deer if I don't find anything bigger than that or older than that. So yeah, it's just it's a different style. And maybe it's the habitat too. Like I'm hunting the mountain. There's just not multiple 4 and 5-year-olds like we're going to see in Iowa or Illinois. Like it's just not possible.
Yeah.
I'm in that spot. There may be a mature deer in the hundreds of acres I'm hunting.
Well, you got to be real with yourself too. So like, I would say I found one in Ohio that I'm like, that tracks buck. I'm like, that's the buck
the deer
I want to target. However, there's other deer that I would hunt and shoot. And so I'm constantly gauging what are the chances that I can even be on this deer. And at the moment,
it's not great.
At the moment, yeah, it's just he will come through areas that I have access to at some point. Right now in daylight, I don't think so. So I'm like, okay, in the meantime, there are other deer I would shoot, in the meantime. So like even this, as we're sitting here talking, this coming 4-day stretch here, I'll probably hunt multiple deer.
Interesting.
Like depend on the wind that I get and stuff. And,
yeah, that's a luxury.
Where I'm going to put Corey and stuff. It is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's just what I choose to do. Like,
you could go for broke on tracks.
I could go for broke and I could just be like, well, the wind's not right. And I am making considerable effort to get to where he is.
Yeah,
like,
you're trying to get permissions and stuff.
Yeah.
Now
And so I'm working on it and that may happen, it's like, but that's just how a season kind of unfolds. It's like, and who knows, I might shoot Lebrowski in the meantime, like on the way, but it's like, okay, well, but that's the point of like from season to season, like I'm working on improving situations and gaining access. And guess what? He'll be a year older next year if he doesn't get killed.
Yeah.
And they do. And so,
and the hard part too with that deer is like you have one set of pictures from him. So it's like
from this year.
Yeah, from this year. So it's like, those are the ones that kill you because it's like if you got one more set, like it could just be one more piece of the puzzle. I know where he's at.
I got a gut feeling.
And you're trying to get permission on it now.
Yeah. Which
is good. That's a hope.
And if that doesn't happen, I think I can kill him on the other stuff that I do have permission on. Not the new piece, unfortunately. I think I'm going to kind of write that off.
Getting overhunted now.
Yeah. Multiple blue jeans and crossbows crossing through there.
That'll do it. Surprised they didn't have corn piles in there.
I'm sure they're in there somewhere.
They're in our pockets. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is that definitely makes art. Well, like even the 1 5-year-old I have on the mountain, people listen to this will be like, well, dude, that's the pinnacle. Like, go kill that deer. I've got one picture of him hitting a scrape at midnight. And like, that's a tough one to nail down when the area is in is like 600 acres. It's the needle in the haystack, right? I need something to go off of. Could I go and just sit that for 7 days? Sure. But like, those 7 days are like extremely valuable right now. So when you put your ass in a tree stand, you better believe that you think you are in the game for the deer you're hunting. Not, well, I might as well. I'd rather be out there looking for another one, to your point, like hunting a different deer that I would shoot than just wasting and burning the days.
Yeah, sure.
That are so critical to kills at this point.
I'm going to hear something stupid. I don't think I would shoot that flyer buck.
Interesting. The broke brow one?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't think I want to shoot him.
Think he's 4?
I think he is.
Yep.
Yeah, I think... the
other deer he came out with was 5, though, right?
I'd shoot him.
Yeah.
That's the GR8.
GR8 buck. Mm-hmm.
That's Dale's name. Yeah.
Is that just grade 8?
Yeah, something like that. Great.
Good
so
one, Dale.
I'd shoot, yeah. So I'd shoot the tracks buck, obviously, I think.
Obviously.
I think that's I think he'd be top of the list, but the odds are not yet stacked in my favor. I'd shoot the GR8 buck.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even actively hunt the GR8 buck.
Mm-hmm. Lebrowski?
I'd hunt Lebrowski for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd shoot that 8-point at Rays.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the deer I'd shoot right now.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's a big swath of opportunity for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'd shoot that flyer buck. Obviously would not shoot Temptation.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple other 4-year-old 8 points
Mm-hmm.
on the Roberts. Dude, them 8 points get tough to keep track of, though.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good ones.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and per what
20
we just
inches
talked
inside.
about earlier, like now's the time you could be hunting one of those deer and another 5-year-old shows up.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and all those deer are 5 or older.
Mm-hmm.
So Trax is 5, GR8's 5, the 8 at Rays is 5, and Lebrowski's 7.
What about your satellite pieces? We haven't really talked about those.
Jed and I kind of have an agreement that's like...
Because Jed's kid killed one. Was that on one of the satellite pieces, or was that their home farm?
No, yeah, it was out of the same stand that I killed the Booner and the other
It
one.
was?
Yeah, same stand.
Awesome.
And that was a 4-year-old.
Yep. Yeah,
And
awesome buck.
Jed and I had basically said, let's pass that deer, but then he was just there every day.
Yeah.
And Silas had not killed his first buck yet. And I was like...
No-brainer.
Not that he needed my permission, it's his farm,
Yeah.
but I was like, dude, you should put Silas on that buck.
Yeah, go kill
So
it.
they went in and killed it, like, immediately.
Yep. Awesome. And that was early, really, for that property. It doesn't really start producing until, like, now, usually.
We were in Kansas. So, yeah, it was, like, later November.
Wait, what?
Is that what you said? You said it was early in the year?
Yeah.
No, we were in Kansas when he killed that. So it would have been 3rd week in November.
Oh, I thought Silas killed one this year.
Yeah, he did. That was on their home farm.
Oh, that's what I was talking about.
Sorry, I'm talking about last year.
Oh, yeah.
Also a 4-year-old this year. I mean, kid's stacking some giants. He's like 11 years old.
Okay.
That was like a 160.
That makes sense from last year. But so anything this year on those farms?
On that farm,
Mm-hmm.
no.
You have cameras running, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because typically, I mean, that's the farm that first week of November is like you go in and kill a buck, a mature buck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when they start kind of moving through there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rut farm.
It's a rut farm.
Yeah, and so I'm hopeful for that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to just have those opportunities lined up, and I'm not stressing that they're not there. It's just that's what that farm is. So
yeah, but when they're there, you got to go.
Yeah, and I may be not there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
there's a couple. There's 2 decent bucks that I know of at the other one. At just one's like a 4-year-old, and that's what I was saying. Jed and I are kind of like, we're trying to hunt some giants on this if we can let them go. So we just we've got other places to shoot 4-year-olds, so we'll do that. And we got one that's older, but he's and Tight Rack showed once. He'll be around, but that deer.
That deer.
Yeah, that's that deer right there, and he is the same, or if maybe not, slightly smaller.
Yep.
And it's one of those deals where it's like, I don't know. I guess I'd rather, and he's probably 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd rather kill Lebrowski.
Okay.
Just because he's on my home farm.
Yeah.
And I've got more history with him.
Yeah.
Than that one. Just because Jed would shoot that deer and whatever.
Yeah. Jed doesn't have any giants over at his place?
No giants.
Isn't that weird, man? It seemed like every year, not just him, but like in the neighborhood, it's like there's giants.
Yeah, I mean, there's degrees of efficiency at running cameras too.
Yeah.
I think that they're out there probably.
Yep. Any of the other neighbors, giants?
He's got some good deer. I mean, I'll give him credit. He doesn't get all that excited about a lot of deer, unless it's a giant.
Mm-hmm.
So,
any of the other neighbors got anything big?
That kid sent me the Tight Rack, the muley buck the other day, 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. We had a conversation. I told him I jokingly, I was like, I won't shoot it if you won't. And then I quickly followed that up by, but hey, like, I'll obviously shoot it if you want to. Like my uncle will shoot it. So it's a weird dynamic on our farm because it's like I'm trying to get guys on deer that I would like to see live a year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm not, it's not like I'm.
Well, and that's just because of the nature of the situation. There's only so many 5-year-old and older bucks on a property.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so, hypothetically, if you were efficient and you killed them all, somebody would probably be left holding their tag because there is no more 5-year-olds.
Right. Well, and right now, 4 years old is the number.
Yep, which I think is a really good realistic mark.
Yep. And until it seems overwhelmingly possible, it's going to be tough to get my guys to pass 4-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's one that I'm like, hey, he's in a really secure part of the farm. I think there's a really good chance of him living, and he's got a ton of potential.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe in that situation, I can ask everybody to pass, and they will.
Mm-hmm. But
as long as they can identify him,
Yeah.
It's funny. Sense. It's funny how, dude, I saw that temptation buck
in
the woods, and so I picture after picture after picture. I was even like, is this deer 2 or 3? I don't know. I'm leaning towards 3 now.
Okay.
But still, it gets these pictures. I'm like, okay, got him. I know what he looks like. I'm well acquainted with this deer. And then once I walk out in the woods to this other spot, and I come out of there thinking I just saw a freaking giant.
Yeah.
And 100%.
It was him.
Definitely. Granted, it was a glance. I mean, It was a brief encounter, but all I saw was a wall of tines. I'm like, he looked heavy. You know? But so I've got grace for that too. But
yeah, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who see that deer coming through and they're like, giant, boom, dead.
Oh, dude, yeah. People aren't passing that deer.
Mm-hmm.
But a very, very small number of people have the mentality.
It's interesting. I've been trying to think about that more and more.
Dude, my one neighbor thinks that Bigfoot isn't legitimately. I didn't tell you this.
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry to cut you off there, but you bring up a good point. My dad's called him Elmer Fudd for years. They've had like hit or miss encounters.
Yeah.
Where my dad will walk in
Bigfoot?
somewhere.
Oh.
Well, this guy claims, direct, like.
Yeah. Was molested by one. Mm-hmm.
But basically, like, a cone will be moved on this access in because it's like an easement or something. And my dad will be like, that guy's like, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, so I want to go over there and make a presence. He finally did run into him. And the guy's like, not right.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's description basically was he had like a Walmart, like a kid's bow, like not a real bow type of deal. And I guess the guy was like, oh, it's cranked all the way up to 40 pounds, And
wow,
like overall, nothing wrong with overalls, but I'm just painting a picture for you.
Hey, at least it wasn't a crossbow.
That's right. Yeah. This dude, I take him more seriously than a lot of people.
He's like, what am I, a pussy?
Yeah. I ain't one of them. So he legitimately like was showing my dad pictures of like, look here. He's like, you could see a daddy, a baby, and a mama Bigfoot clearly. And he's pointing out trees. Like there's a tree that's broke off.
Whoa.
Like obviously by the wind or something. It's in a cattle pasture. I don't know. And he's like, that's what they'll do. He's like, they'll do that so they can, it's basically a warning. He's like, this is just kind of like a transition zone for them. He's like, I don't think they live here.
Do we hunt this transition zone or no?
And that's my dad giving me this account. So I mean,
the
guy was dead serious. Like,
wow.
Yeah. It's my neighbor. One of them. That guy hunts with a rifle, with a gun too when the time comes. That's terrifying.
That's very terrifying. I wouldn't be anywhere close to that guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, to try to get that guy to identify a 4-year-old versus whatever.
No, he's just
it's just not
he's
happening.
just aging Sasquatches.
Yeah. Knocking on trees and stuff.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, you're like, you're sitting here saying like, what the hell's that? He's just out there banging a baseball bat against a tree.
Kind of terrifying. But.
Yeah, I don't like that stuff. That's not.
What were you saying though? Sorry.
I was, I think it kind of ties into what you just talked about, not the Sasquatch side, but I was trying to
feel squatchy.
I was running into, I've run into a fair amount of people on public land this year just because I've been on it more and covering more ground. And I've been pleasantly surprised at what at least most of them say that they're going to be looking for.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. But I say that, and this is not an offense to just like pure gun hunters, because I know there's a lot of them out there, but I would say most of your gun hunters are the a buck category guy, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're just out there to punch a tag type of thing. Most of them.
Maybe on a state-by-state basis, we would say that. So in Pennsylvania is what you're talking about.
Yeah, Pennsylvania for sure.
Yep. If you're strictly, which there's not a whole lot of them left, I don't think.
Not anymore because of the crossbow side.
A lot of them are
Yep.
in the archery season.
Yep.
Choice
Okay.
words.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're like, I'm not going to take any heat for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, just running, it's like, okay, because I see signs, see historic sign, I run into somebody, I'm like, oh, yeah, and I tell them pretty much straight up, I'm like, hey, listen, like, I'm just dropping a camera in here, like, I'm looking for, like, a 4 and older type buck. And they're like, most of them will be like, yeah, I'm looking for, like, 3 and older, and I'm like, okay. I was like, well, like, if you hunted up here a lot recently? And they're like, yeah, a couple years. Normally I've already run into their tree stand set, and I'm just like, yeah, this is not the right spot here at all. Mm-hmm. Or their cameras. I've run into a lot of cameras
and then you see
the
them
woods.
in the truck with a buck on the way out.
Yeah.
You're like, damn it.
Yeah, and it's probably a basket. But yeah, I would say that there's good pressure up there, but not nearly as much as I thought. Now, once gun season happens and bear season happens, that blows shit up like crazy. Like even this weekend coming up, we've got like the muzzleloader bear season in Pennsylvania.
PA boys, they love to bear hunt.
Yeah, I mean
it's
gonna rip and roar up on that mountain. In fact, I expect at least 2 or 3 cameras to get stolen or shot at this point.
Shot?
Yeah, probably.
You had camera shot?
Yeah, several of them.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these I would assume most people would just steal them, but which is fine. Like it is, I expect it.
I will give a shout out to the crossbow guy I saw walking in front of my camera the other day. He opened the camera.
Oh, he did,
but he didn't take it or anything. So I appreciate that. That was nice of him.
He opened it.
Yeah, you can tell it swung open.
Wonder what he's doing.
Maybe looking for a name or something, or an SD card.
Yeah, I was gonna say pull an SD card.
I assume it would stop working if he took the SD card.
I would assume so.
So it's working.
Yep. Huh. Yeah, I would hope that if anybody listening to this has seen me on their camera on the mountain, they know that, one, I've just walked in front of your camera so you know I'm there. But I've not touched any cameras. And I've seen a lot of them. Mm-hmm. It's crossed my mind of like, wonder what they've had on this SD card, and is it worth me putting one up here?
What do you think of that?
What's that?
Do you think that's...
Well, yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Okay.
Not in...
Do you think that's like theft, though? If you have the right to be on a property, or if it's public land, for instance, would it be unethical to pull a card and look at it and put it back in?
Ugh. I would say that...
I say no. I say it's fine.
I'd say it's not unethical.
As long as you don't delete the pictures. I think that's fine.
I just don't... I don't like to mess with somebody else's stuff.
I get it.
Yeah.
Me neither.
I don't think it's unethical. If somebody did it to my camera, and as long as they put it back and it was working, I'd be a little bit pissed off, but it wouldn't bother me that much. I get more pissed off when you just cut my camera off the tree and take it. Like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, but I don't think I would. Yeah, I mean,
should you expect that, like, as a public land hunter or shared access? Like,
now that said, and I haven't done it yet this year, I will sit somebody's tree stand.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
100%. If your tree stand is set up,
somebody's been sitting in my tree stand.
If your tree stand's set up and like I'm walking in and it's whatever normal time frame, and I don't feel like anybody else is coming in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna sit this stand. I will sit your tree stand.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah,
in public land.
Yep.
Yeah, well, you can't leave them there overnight. So,
I don't know I think there is a situation where you can leave them now on Pennsylvania ground.
Oh, okay.
I think you have to have your name and number on it, or name and hunting number on it or something, and you can leave it. Yeah. I would too. Probably. It's the warranty around the tree stands, like the hang-ons, that you're not supposed to leave them in the set like overnight. That like voids them. So if you hang it,
yeah, but there's public lands that you're not allowed to leave stuff overnight.
Yeah, I think Kansas is one now.
For sure is.
Yep. Yeah, but Pennsylvania, I'm pretty sure you can. Whatever the day, I think it's September 1st or something.
They just have to be out of there by,
and then they have to be out like 15 or 30 days after the season. So yeah, I will sit your stand, but I won't fondle your camera.
Interesting. Which would you rather have done to you?
I'd let him sit my stand. That's fine. Now, if I come in, get the fuck out.
Isn't it the same? Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. You should get out.
But there's a lot of people that believe it's a first come, first serve on public land, even if it's your stand. which I don't necessarily agree with.
Sure. Interesting. I don't know the ethics on that.
I'm sure there's some. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, in my gut, it's your tree stand.
Yeah, if you came in, I'm like, oh shit, dude, sorry, like I'll move off.
Yeah, I'll hunt it, but if you ask me to get out, I'm gonna get out.
Let me ask you this, because I had this was a hard one the other day for me. I found what I believed was a really good spot on public, right off of a thicket, old sign, couple fresh scrapes.
Mm-hmm.
I set up a camera in a spot that I wasn't like completely thrilled with, but like I'm like, this is good enough. Like it'll develop over the next couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I leave it. I walk 50 more yards and I find another camera on a big scrape, like right down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, all right, now I'm not sure. Like, do I leave my camera on that other scrape?
Or put it on the same scrape.
Put it on the same scrape, or just like feel like somebody's going to be in here and mess it up and just get out of the area. I ended up taking it down and I moved it to a completely different area. And again, I'm not looking at it necessarily from a pattern ability to hunt. I'm just trying to get inventory with these cameras. I got one camera in a block basically to try to get inventory.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think I would have put it on the same scrape, but I even moved it from 50 yards away. I don't know.
Remember in Kansas, we had our camera out.
Oh yeah.
And some guys took it and put their camera
right on it.
Oh, right on it?
Yep.
I don't know. And we can't prove it, but like, if that is what happened, I don't know what the thought process was, that we weren't going to go back and like take their camera.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did.
We did.
Did we take it?
No,
we left it.
Yeah, no, we took the card.
We took the card?
Yeah, it was a spy point. We didn't want it anyways.
I don't think it was even working at that point.
No, it wasn't.
Maybe. But then I climbed the tree like 20 foot in the air and hung another one.
With a solar panel.
With a solar panel.
Yeah.
So we had like a contesting back and forth on the tree there. Yeah, I mean, it's not illegal to hang a camera on the same scrape. Well,
that was the whole problem out west, is everybody was hanging them on the same wallows and stuff. Yeah, so you had 55 cameras on the same.
For the DR. I just think it's you should just know what to expect. You know.
Well, and that was kind of what my thing was. I'm like, I assume that if I get a big buck on here, so do they. We're both going to come in here and try to hunt it. It's going to get messy. If I can find them somewhere else, because I did keep that camera on the same parcel. I just went to a different spot, and I was hoping I'd just find him on a different area, and then I'd hunt him there, and maybe he hunts him there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you're a bad guy if you put a camera on the same scrape, but I will say you're going to have less issues because you just moved on.
Yeah.
So is what it is.
Yeah, it ultimately comes down. Now, if it was like, if I thought it was the spot of spots, I might have.
Let me say this. So like on one of these properties I have permission on, it's family ground, and I have family permission, and I've been there for a long time, and I feel entitled to it, basically, which maybe is wrong. Somebody else has been given permission recently on grounds that it's not my property, so it's not my place to say, that I feel like is stupid. Like he gave him a discount on some work or something, so he said, "Oh yeah, you can hunt over there." It's an Amish guy. I'm not yielding to that guy at all.
It's
just what it is.
You're a steamroll him. I'm blood.
I can't kick him off.
Right.
But I am not going to like yield. I'm not going to be like, oh, he put a tree stand in there, because I don't have any tree stands in there.
No.
I'm like,
You're going to mobile it.
I mobile it, you know? And so like the whole thing of like, well, I didn't see a tree stand over here, is well, yeah, but I'm hunting it actively. Like I'm monitoring it. I've got cell cameras and stuff. And so.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Like, truthfully, the objective is just to make them uncomfortable and to get them to leave. But,
so I've got
but here would be a worst case scenario is like my family member gets pissed off that I'm making them uncomfortable and kicks me off, or kicks us both off. I don't want that either.
So not that I feel threatened by this at all, just because of the situation it is. But so I've got 75 acres behind my cabin in Kentucky. The neighbor has given me permission to hunt their 100 acres behind me. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy and Stealth Cam trail cameras.
Cell cams. What an evolution the industry has seen, and we've experienced personally over the past 5, 10, whenever cameras were invented, right? It's like, man, it's totally changed the way that we inventory deer, pattern deer, and ultimately the decisions that we make when we're going out to hunt. They're a serious piece of the puzzle, and that information is invaluable for us. We trust the Muddy and Stealth cams, together to be able to collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, as an admitted admitted trail cam addict, I've definitely been guilty of underhunting places or relying too heavily on that information that's come in. That said, it's an invaluable tool to the overall management plan and strategy that I have for my own properties or even hunting public land. It doesn't matter. We have a finite amount of time in going out and hunting. So when you and I are after a particular class or quality of deer, usually a mature buck, we can't waste time hunting an area where that deer doesn't exist. And those cell cams provide that information that allow us to spend the time in the area with the highest chance to accomplish our goals.
Say it all the time, man. They can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
So right now, any of our listeners can use code HUNTR20 to get 20% off either Muddy or Stealth cameras. We're certainly going to be taking advantage of that, and we hope you guys do too.
Yep, check out Stealth Cam and Muddy.
You said you got permission on acreage behind the
cabin. So and I've hunted that since I guess not since I bought the place. I've hunted that for a year and a half, 2 years now at this point that they've given me access back there. I mean, I've done some stuff with
and that was
family.
Permission or a lease?
I do pay them something at the end of the year just because I think it's not a lot especially for 100 acres. But they've stayed at my cabin when we've had bad winters and they can't get back to their house and stuff like that. So
yeah, you have an understanding.
Yep, we have an understanding.
Do we have an understanding?
So a small, like, shitty A-frame on less than an acre came up for auction right next to me. And
was that the one you thought was landlocked?
Yes.
Okay.
Which apparently wasn't, but I tried. And so I got into the auction for a while, but eventually it went up. Like, somebody bought it for like $100,000 or something. I was like, freaking nuts.
What did you think it was worth?
Like 15.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was just, it was shitty. Nobody had lived in it for 5 or 6 years. It was kind of not falling in, but it wasn't in good shape. It needed a lot of work. It was on less than an acre. And the road up to it is not good. So anyways.
Wow. $100,000.
Yeah, I bought it for $100,000. And they've put a lot of money into it to, like, fix it up and make it
helps
usable.
Your resale value in a way.
I would hope so. And so anyways, like, I've had conversations with the new owner, like, in passing. I've let him use my water when he didn't have water hooked up at his house. Like, just let him put trash out by my house, whatever.
Neighborly.
Yeah, neighborly stuff. So I drive up there this weekend. I'm going to, like, check cameras and pull cards because they're all SD cards. And I look over, and first thing I see is a target in the yard. I'm like, okay, target. Then I see a big feeder and a ladder stand on the property line looking into his yard, essentially. And I just think that's shitty. Like, you have less than an acre. Now, in grand scheme of things, do I feel like he's going to kill a buck that I'm chasing? Probably not. Maybe, because that's just how luck goes. Like, that's the dude who kills it. But it's like, you've got under an acre. The road is 30 yards from your tree stand. And you've got a big feeder. And it also, the same place he has a big feeder, he's got one of those big scent drippers. Like, just drip it. Yep. And then a ladder stand right there as well.
Yep.
And it's just like,
ugh. Yeah, it's people see that every day, that situation, I'm sure.
And I mean, it's his property, right? He can do what he wants.
What do you know about the guy? I mean, is that like his only place to hunt? Is that the only reason he bought it?
It's not the only reason he bought it. It's more of like, I just like being out here. It's kind of in the mountains, get away. He's from the city.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the actual one hunting or his buddy is the one hunting. Well,
that's important to know.
Yep. I'm not positive.
As you're calculating your counter.
Yep, I'm not positive on that one yet. It's like the feeder and stuff I don't really care about. Like, fine, whatever, dude. Like, you got a 100-pound feeder there. Like, I just dropped 1,000 pounds on my property. But it's the tree stand on the property line thing that always gets me. Because it's a property line tree.
It's only an acre? I mean, an acre.
It's less than an acre.
It's really small.
Yes.
Yeah, very small.
I mean, from where I'm driving the four-wheeler up the road to his tree stand is 35 yards. And that tree stand is the furthest away from the road he can get. His house is in between, let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the reality.
And not to knock it, because I just said that I do it. The only reason that is happening is because it's a bait state.
Yes, yeah, right.
If it wasn't a bait state, that tree stand doesn't exist there. There's no rhyme or reason it would ever be there.
Sure. Well, I mean, how often do you talk to him now? I mean, what's the relationship?
I mean,
what's your perception of the guy?
It's a passing.
Nice guy?
Yeah. I mean, we've not had any issues. City guy.
Not a big deer hunter, I assume.
No. That's why I'm pretty sure that it's
wonder
his
where
buddy.
He got the idea. That's what I mean. If it's his buddy, I would not hesitate to ask him not to do that.
Yeah. I think it's probably because his buddy was the one who helped him like remodel everything. So it's probably a tit for tat. Is that the saying?
Sure.
Quid pro quo. Quid pro quo.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
I would casually have that conversation and be like, hey, dude,
because I want to do.
I don't want to tell you what to do. I just wanted to ask,
right?
Hey, are you hunting the tree stand or what's the deal? I just saw this stuff coming up. I'm a deer hunter, right?
Well, and there's some issues that I'm even like, I'm trying to kind of nip in the ass here is like, all right, November 9th, is there a dude with a gun sitting in that tree stand? Mm-hmm. Like, because I'm going to sit 150 yards behind him in a tree stand on my property, for sure.
Are there any laws about
I don't know.
property lines, how far you have to be with a gun, or from structures?
There's got to be. I don't know. I haven't looked. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things where...
I assume it'll be before that. I bet it'll be this week with a crossbow. Somebody be up there.
I think he was there when I was hunting this last weekend.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I mean, Harlan and I were up in the blind behind him, probably grunting and rattling. He's probably like, buck's coming.
I'd ask him if it's him or if it's his friend. And if it's his friend, I would say, hey, man, just landowner as your neighbor. Like, we put a lot into this property,
Mm-hmm.
And I understand you're trying to help a friend out. Like, would you mind not doing that? It's the property line.
I assume it's because it's the only place he's got besides going on public or something.
If it's him, then that's tougher.
Well, part of it is that unless that deer drops in his yard, it ends up on my property.
That's right. Yeah, you're asking.
The lot he bought, it was in a subdivision off of my property from before me.
Yeah,
so
you're asking for problems. It's not enough you're going to end up calling me for permission and to retrieve a deer and stuff. And
I don't want to do that.
Right.
I don't want to have that issue.
Yep. So, hey, I'm just trying to get ahead of issues that we're going to run into down the future. Like, I've got other spots I can show you, offer some, your public, whatever.
Sure.
Otherwise, just put a big fence around it.
Yeah. Well, I thought about just going to nail on
which you don't want to do because you want to be neighborly. There's a way to talk it out.
Yeah,
give him an opportunity to do the right thing.
I kind of feel like it should have been talked out from his end.
Yep.
In that, like, it's clearly surveyed your parcel you just bought, of which I'm everything.
You know how
around.
that goes, though. He's going to ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you just got to talk to him. Sucks, but
Yeah, I don't like that.
So.
Or I find that there's a structure rule of which I just call him into the game warden.
Or just make him aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to do everything humanly possible because you don't have time to be dealing with issues with your neighbors.
Well, and part of the reason is like the other neighbor is the guy who saw that really big buck in his yard, however big it was. Great people, and also the locals. Like the thing is like, Emily and I are not locals there, but we are very involved in that community. Because we appreciate everybody around us. And like I said, we help the neighbor. That's how I got access there.
Yep.
This guy in the same boat had a really rough spell with COVID, and is finally coming out of the weeds. And like, I know that he's looking across the yard at like now this guy being there and being like, what the hell? Like, because he's got not small, but a bigger lot that he can hunt behind his house. And so,
your neighbor.
Yeah. So when it was just me and him.
To him about it yet?
Not yet. And we shared, like, I'll send him pictures.
I'd ask him first. Maybe he knows.
Yeah.
Maybe they've talked.
I don't think they do because that dude's the outcast in the middle. They didn't like that he bought it to begin with.
Why?
Just not the same kind of people around. Not in a race way.
Okay.
No, he's a city guy. He's from Louisville, Kentucky, like from the city, and you can tell too.
Okay.
And so, like, I think when you come into a Kentucky holler like that, like you're in holler country, and like that dude pulls up and like starts doing all this stuff in the middle of kind of like this community essentially, because like you got to imagine I own everything around.
Did he come down? He introduced himself, I assume? Or you guys met somehow?
Yes, I ran into him at his place going to check cameras and
you
stuff
stopped.
in the summer. Yep.
Yep.
I've not had any negative interactions necessarily with him. Besides
Single
the fact,
guy, married, couple, kids?
Nah, kids, probably divorced.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think that the only thing I get from him is like he knows he's well off, and he knows that the people around him are not well off, and I think that shows through a little bit, probably in the communication and stuff to the neighbors.
Okay.
And that doesn't go over well with people.
Okay.
Not necessarily I don't give a shit.
Yeah, right.
I'm not from around there either. But like to the community of people who are there, you treat them like holler people. Yeah, it's not a good thing.
Does he live there full time?
No,
Okay.
It's just like a
getaway for him.
getaway residence. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man.
They're
just talk it
interesting.
out.
The neighbor dynamic.
Communication.
The neighbor dynamic is always like, you never know what you're gonna get. Like,
you have options. I would go to the neighbor and I'd see if you can get any information.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, hey, have you talked to the guy?
I'm gonna catch that guy in the tree stand here at some point for sure, and I'll figure out who it is. It's the guy I'm thinking about. He's a chain smoker anyway, so I'm really not that concerned. But
that means nothing. Those guys kill the most deer.
Yeah, I killed goose.
That's right.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, sorry. Sore spot. Yeah, I don't know. It just was one of those things that like you drive by it and you're just like, you got to be shitting me. Just because
you and I have a mutual friend that from Texas.
Yep.
That this exact same thing happened.
Yeah.
Guy bought like an acre.
Yep.
Put up a big corn pile, big corn feeder, and a ladder. Exact same situation, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he planted the Egyptian wheat or like the fence, like
right
completely.
There.
No, like a box.
Yeah.
Like completely boxed him in.
Mm-hmm. I don't have that option in the mountains.
Yeah, I mean it would be drastic, but worst case scenario,
I just put like 7 strands of barbed wire up.
It's your property,
like a prison.
Do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or if just a fence.
I won't be that
real fence.
That neighbor, but we'll have that conversation.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, you got options. Yeah. Communication's the best one. I talk to him
and at the end of the day, like I don't care. Like if you're gonna, like I'm not gonna stop you from like killing a deer or something. Like I have nothing against that. It's just the respect of the property lines and what could happen. Also, like it's inevitable when you're sitting a property line like that. Yeah. That if a buck comes behind you, you're gonna shoot him on my property. That's not gonna go well.
Or that'd be worst case scenario. More likely is it comes in.
There's no way it's coming in his yard. I'll tell you that right now.
Not to the corn pile?
No.
Why not?
It's on a road. Like it might at night. That's me blowing up. Sorry.
No.
It might at night, but like it's not coming in. It's like right off the road that all the neighbors use.
I don't know.
I don't think he's sitting in that stand. He may shoot it from his house. That's a very, very possible. Like I'm inside, I look out, he's out there, I hang the crossbow out,
hey, man.
I shoot him.
Just those are, the joys of land ownership. Telling people are like, oh, it must be nice. It's like there's quite a few headaches that come with it, know, and just be glad he doesn't have like a dog sled team that he lets run your entire property,
It's very true. He does have dogs. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just I wanted to put that out there because I'm sure there's other people that have
that's a common one.
Have those issues with the neighbors. And I mean, I always try to take the high road in it. I'm not going to just go in and do something that causes tension or issue.
I've done that before. I mean, that's your first reaction is you want to like, I'll show them.
Oh, yeah.
But it's almost always better
to
just talk to them first and try to see if there's some common ground.
I think I don't think this comes down to like who is the hunter in the cabin. Basically, it would be very tempting to poach a deer off of that spot for them, like because it's a road. There's lighting, so like you could see 24/7 out there. Clearly, that buck was up. A big buck was in the neighbor's yard right across the street, so I'm sure he was at his feeder.
Interesting.
It very tempting to just like put the crossbow out and
easily shot there. Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to say that they're that type of people, but it's very tempting to do that.
Well, anybody could at that point.
Anybody could.
You're saying.
Anybody could. Yep. Yeah, which again is one of those things that I don't like is that if deer are coming to his feeder, historically they weren't coming up to his road to sit under the lights and feed, because all of my stuff is back way off the road.
Yeah.
So now they're all coming up to that road, which makes them just more tempting to anybody driving on there.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a great opportunity for a neighborly conversation
Or fight.
And you can go from there. Or fight, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Let them show you who they are first. I think that'd be the
and like
give them an opportunity, to reason with you or to
I don't think that the other neighbors, maybe a crossbow they're fine with. If that dude's sitting in there with a high powered rifle, the other neighbors won't tolerate that. I mean, he's looking at the road to shoot.
I assume they're not. I assume it's like a crossbow setup. I assume it's his buddy. That's where
the city people, and I don't mean this disrespectful to anybody that's like literally a city person listening to this, they don't understand that. They're like, well, we're in the middle of nowhere. Like, we can just shoot a gun like this in our backyard and kill a deer, right? Like,
yeah.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Like, there's still houses around you.
Yeah. Well, there's also you think you're remote and it's like you have a small and you have a property that's remote and so you're like, oh, I can do all this stuff now here on it. And
yeah. And then it's like, it's only 0.75 acres. Like,
right.
No, you can't.
Yeah. There's just the realities of like how what it actually is, how big it is. And
yeah. Interesting situation. And again, I'm sure there's plenty of people here with like insanely worse neighbor stories than that. Like, cause there is nothing that's happened.
Word,
yet.
Yeah. That's nothing.
Yeah. It's nothing. So, but those are the things that, like, yeah, as a landowner, you're just like,
yeah, you deal with it.
Yep, you deal with
it. Yeah, that'll never go away.
No,
just
as long as you have borders, there will always be somebody on the border
perpetually. Yeah, I mean, it's just dealing with people. And,
yep.
Nobody's going to be on this exact same page as you are as far as what deer you're trying to shoot or how you're managing or whatever. It's just not.
Well, I look at
what most
too,
people are doing.
It's safety issues. Like if Emily and the kids are hunting, there's a blind 150 yards there, and he starts wailing away into the woods because he thinks it's just woods behind me, and it's like, no, we're right there. Like that's not a great thing.
Yeah.
Or if I'm shooting from my property, like, I'm shooting usually down into the valley, but like
didn't you get shot at a couple of years ago?
I did. Yeah, on that property by my neighbor.
He was just shooting back into the woods.
Was freaking close.
At a deer?
No.
Just
at us.
At you?
He thought we were trespassers.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
By the guy that lives across
Not that guy, different guy.
That moved out?
No, he's still there. Yeah.
What's the deal
My
with
only
him?
encounter I've ever had with him at that. And he lives right next to me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we were on the
I missed this.
far eastern side of our property. Yeah, far eastern side. It kind of wraps around a knob. And then there's like a big, there's a ridge line up at the top that we were going to go up on the ridge line and stuff. So we're walking. It's, springtime probably. But there's plenty of leaves on the ground, so it's loud and stuff. And so we're walking through, and like all of a sudden you hear,
yeah, I know
and
this,
I'm like,
I know the sound.
and
yeah.
I freaking dove on the kids because it was all four of us. I dove onto the kids, and I was like, "Whoa, what the hell!" And he shot twice more in our direction. And I mean, we do a lot of profanity on here, but I was off my charts. And he said, "You can't be on there. You're trespassing." I said, "It's my fucking property." What? No, it isn't. Yes, it is. This is my property. I own this property. Who the hell are you? And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was people trying to steal stuff off my property."
He apologized.
I sent them down, and I was packing, and I came like a head of steam. I'm surprised I didn't bury that dude in the woods somewhere.
So you confronted him.
Absolutely did.
How did that go?
It was heated from my side, not from his. He was just not all there.
Yeah.
Just old and decrepit and probably
Wow.
whacked out at some point during his career.
How far were you from him while he was shooting at you?
100 yards maybe.
What was he shooting with?
22.
With a scope?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Just wailing into the trees.
That's insane.
And he was basically saying he wasn't shooting at us. He was just shooting towards us to scare us. But it was freaking close, dude.
Same thing.
Real close. Real close.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd call the cops on him for sure. Why didn't you call the cops?
I talked to, I did. I talked to the sheriff about it, and it was one of those situations where they're like, yeah, we know he's kind of crazy. They didn't do anything. None of these guys do anything in these small towns. If you're not from there, they don't care.
Wow.
Don't care. Same thing with the guy in Ohio. That dude with the machete who was trespassing on my property, drinking Bud Heavies up on the top
Yeah,
end.
you know, what are you going to do?
They went out there. They sent 2 people out there. And I called the sheriff and I said, hey, like the neighbors want me to press charges so that this guy doesn't come back. They're like, nah, you know what? He's just a wacko. Like, he won't be back. They won't even talk to me. It's like, it's your job to let me press charges when there's been a crime. Won't even talk to me about it. They're like, nah, he won't be back. Don't worry about it. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to make sure of it.
Yeah. Wow.
Don't care. Yeah, there's a stigma, and it's a stigma around, frankly, these people that I think are not mentally right, which, damn, if you didn't look at our country and say, like, hey, these are where the problems are. Mental health is the issue in this country. And they just blow it off as like, he's just a wacko. It's like, yeah, could he be dangerous? He was shooting at me.
Yeah, I mean, that one especially, I don't know how you come back from that. Like, you shot at my family.
Yeah, well, we've not had any conversations ever since. And frankly, we just don't go over that side anymore. We just do not go to that side of the property. I've not been over there since.
Wow.
Yeah, which sucks, you know, because it's not a huge chunk. But, I mean, I've got a tree stand, you know, 180 yards, 200 yards away from the line. But, like, we do not go up over that top of that. I'm kind of in the bottom where my tree stand is. We don't go up over the top anymore.
Yeah.
And I assume he'll die at some point here soon. He was old, but
that's nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was the only time that I had a loaded firearm and I thought I might have to use it on a person.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time I've ever had that situation happen. Because I didn't know what was going to happen when I came up on him.
Yeah. And you said he cowered and was like, hey, I didn't know.
Yeah, he was like, I didn't know that you own this place. I'd owned it for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, just off his rocker.
I can't imagine.
And he was like, yeah.
When was this?
Like 2 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, you know, some kids have been back here, like, stealing there's nobody back there. Nobody's stealing anything. You don't have anything to steal.
And I assume you were like, and you shot at them? Like,
no, he didn't shoot at them.
They shot at you. You're like, you're going to shoot people on my property? Like,
yeah, he just, that was his response now, thinking that people were stealing his shit. I was like, the dude had like 3 dogs that, like, a squirrel couldn't pass by his house without them sounding off. Like,
yeah,
nobody's stealing your stuff out there, dude.
Wow. Dude, there are a lot of people out there.
And he seriously has a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, for sure off his rocker.
Man, you got to watch, dude. Encounters in the woods are, I mean, that's why, yeah, they're not great. I try to avoid that at all costs.
Even though that one was crazy, the most memorable one I had was in this state. I was probably 16 maybe. And it was during the 3-day Pennsylvania doe season.
Mm-hmm.
And we were hunting. It was just old coal company ground and stuff. So it wasn't posted or anything. You basically hunt. And then there were some game lands there. And there was some posted ground. And we knew about it. Like, and we knew the guy was kind of off his rocker a little bit. And so I had shot a doe, like, back in these autumn olive fields and stuff. And so we were just dragging out. There's probably 7 or 8 of us. And, like, there's one area where there's a couple logging roads, but, like, they all come together. And it's, like, where this cool company ground, where game lands, and where this guy's private meets. And then we get up on a tram road, and, like, we can just drag that deer the whole way out to the cabin where we had our place. And so we get up there. We're on the cabin. We hear 4-wheeler coming. And this dude pulls up and jumps off. I mean, basically, 4-wheeler just rolls out from underneath him, jumps off, racks it, and is pointing it right at the 7 of us. And he says, "What the hell are you doing trespassing on my property?" I mean, I'm talking, you looked in this guy's eye, and he was whacked out on whatever. Like he was not there at all. And I mean, also just like probably on, I don't know, what, like cocaine or something. Like he just like face was rushed out. Like, I mean, he was just like running on all cylinders basically.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, you know, it was like my dad and my uncles, and then it was me and my cousin.
Oh, wow. Not just you and a bunch of other kids.
No, there was like my family. And I mean, he was like ripped, and we're like, we shot this down there, you know, we're dragging. He's like, bullshit, you shot it on my property. You coming right through my property. And like, I mean, I thought it was gonna.
I've heard that before.
It was gonna go.
I think that, yeah.
And I don't know. I don't remember exactly. You know, I was 16 or whatever, and I was the one who shot the deer.
I could just see his situation where everybody's like, whoa, 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 and then and your dad's just standing there like took care of
He's
him.
like, this is what we were all gonna do, right?
Yeah, that's what everyone was thinking. That
Everyone
right?
was thinking this.
We're all on the same boat here.
Yeah, and so I mean, because he would have for sure got somebody would have got shot before somebody took him down. But I thought for sure, but somehow it de-escalated to the point, not like he was okay with stuff. He was just like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you know,
who responded?
I think it was my uncle responded to it to try to de-escalate, which would be his style to try to de-escalate the situation. But
which uncle?
Corey. He's the youngest of the group. I don't think so. And so yeah, but I remember it like vividly of like,
wow, that
was one of those interactions. In fact, Corey, who de-escalated that, had a situation that I was heated on, that he shot like a decent 8-point on opening day of rifle, and it went down the hill, and there was another shot. We went down there, and there was a guy standing over the deer.
Yeah.
And we went down, and there was one hole in it. And like I had been trailing blood. Like Corey shot it. That guy didn't shoot it. He missed it. And that dude also was very much like, we're going to get into a gunfight if you're trying to take the deer. And Corey, he was like, yeah, just let him have it. Whatever, dude. Yeah, good luck. You're down in this holler. Like, good luck getting it out of here. But people are just, those are the kind of people when you start to say like, hey, there are people with firearms out there, like, you know, maybe it's not the terroristic like crazies that you think. Like there are some people that are not stable, that situations can escalate
that guy
fast.
My dad ran into was like, I carry a firearm during the archery season for Bigfoot. He's like, legitimately for protection. He's like, yeah, I keep a piece on me.
Yeah, and think about that. You're walking through the woods at night without your headlamp on, and that you run into, he very well would shoot you, thinking that you're Bigfoot coming at him.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's some just freaking nut. And it's just, that's why, like, you know, as heated as things can get, like, you're better off trying to take the high road situation, even if it's not the right thing. And ultimately, you can
just a deer. Your life is way more valuable.
You could solve it with, you know, when you get out of the woods, if you want to call a sheriff or you want to call a game warden, that's great. But on a one-on-one situation,
just get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
de-escalate
know.
it.
It's 10 plus years ago, but that one guy shot all those people in Minnesota. You know, he was like trespassing on the property, and like they confronted him, and he shot 2 of them, and then people kept coming to try to like intervene, and he just kept shooting them all. Killed like 7 or 8 people, I think.
Wow.
Out of one like deer hunting family on a piece of property they owned.
Wow.
And it's just like, yeah, dude, like don't just de-escalate and like get the hell out of it. Which is hard nature. You talk about it with bucks. Like some people are just wired to like, let's get into it, man. Let's go. But that situation doesn't.
I mean, truthfully,
end well.
even just the thought of like most people in a gun season is, I don't go out for that reason. Mm-hmm. I'm like, legitimately, I'm like, I just don't trust people with guns.
Yeah. I mean, that's where normally I am.
Think about most people, you know,
I know.
Like how few of them you would trust with a firearm.
Yeah.
Very few.
Most of them I would not
trust. You know
trust.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
not like they're ill-intentioned, but just like they can't.
Well, to be honest, it's one of the reasons. Like, and I do it on some occasions, but it's like, man, I not that it's like dangerous, but like it can escalate quickly. Monitoring your property line during the opening day of gun season.
Oh yeah,
it's the most likely to have occurrences on the property line.
Well, dude, I've thought a million times about like our situation on that whatever. In Illinois, on that one property line.
Yep.
Where it was fine last year. You know, I went and talked to him.
Yep.
It wasn't a confrontation as much as it was like a jab.
Mm-hmm.
A friendly, you know, hey. And I've thought I mean, since then about how would we handle that? Like, is that a situation you just walk up and down and, you know, what's the line of like, of sanity of like, or where you put yourself in? It's like, what if I were to walk up and down that line on opening day of gun season and just fire my gun off at the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like, yeah, I mean, and
that would somebody be set off in a heartbeat.
What do you mean set off?
I bet if there was a person on the other side of that line and you were doing that, that would cause
they'd be upset for sure.
I would assume there'd be a confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not like a firearm confrontation, but there would be
agreed, and that's an extreme. So I'm not saying like, hey, we should do that. I'm just saying like, as you consider, like,
well, you hear
who hasn't thought about like, what could I do to keep these guys from hunting right on the line?
You hear people all the time, whether it's tying toilet paper or flags or whatever to fence lines, so that it's like blowing and like trying to keep deer from like jumping fence lines and stuff. Like, in theory, it's like, well, that's just a passive approach, but man, like those things that does not create fruitful long-term relationships.
Well, and that's why the nature of the relationship is important. Like if it's your neighbor and he's the landowner or she, then yeah, you want to do absolutely everything that you possibly can to like communicate and have a positive like understanding.
Yep.
But if it's like permission guys or, you know, something down the line there, then okay. Like,
well, honestly, no knock to permission people, but permission and trespass people are where the confrontations are, because most of your permission people don't appreciate the land and especially don't appreciate the neighbor relations. They don't care. They're there and gone.
Well, and they're not the same thing. I mean, I know some people, they have permission, so they think they own the place, and you don't.
You don't.
That's not the reality.
Yeah, and they usually don't have the consideration for the neighbors because they really don't.
It's not their neighbor. Yeah, it's just a guy that owns that piece. I just hunt this piece. You know?
Exactly. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Spartan Forge.
Dude. Maps, mapping, right? Yeah. It all starts with a map, a visualization of a new property, into the fine tuning of different food plots, different habitat projects, where those are going to go, all the way to sharing pins and looking kind of like beyond the layers with something like a LiDAR, which is exclusive to Spartan Forge as of now.
Yeah, and whether we're looking at it from a management side to put in food plots or switchgrass, or if we're taking a run and gun public approach on Kansas, it all starts with a map. It starts with a strategy there. You and I are going to have our own Blue Force team, which will allow us to run our own devices, but be able to see what you're adding or what I'm adding to that single map, which is really going to be critical moving forward this hunting season.
That's right. So if you're looking for a mapping software to try out this year, or maybe you're just like not getting what you need out of the one you're using currently, Bill's offered us a promo code of HUNTR20, HUNTR20, that you guys can use to get your own subscription up and rolling. Check out Spartan Forge, download the app, use that promo code, and we'll be using that this year.
Make sure you check out Spartan Forge. And I say all that because, like, listen, I mean, growing up, I was not the straightest line kid by any means. Like,
yeah.
I did all kinds of stuff, whatever I could do to hunt in areas. I mean, I grew up in suburban Pittsburgh. Like, there weren't many woodlots that you could get into necessarily. But, yeah, it's a different thing. And, I mean, I don't I've had several trespassers where, it's an easy conversation. It's hey, listen, like, I'm not going to. I had one where it was a guy and his like 11-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And it was just to pull him aside. And I was like, hey, listen, you're trespassing. Like, you're not supposed to be on here. I'm not going to say anything to make a big scene about it because I want this to be an enjoyable experience
on one of your
for her.
properties.
Yep. And I said, I like you guys just to ease back the way you came. And it was fine. Honestly, he was really apologetic about it. But I think he appreciated the fact that I was like trying not to ruin it for his daughter, who was probably her first hunt.
Was that Ohio?
Yep.
Yeah. And he just walked from public onto private.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he clearly went past signs.
What do you think? He was mistaken? Or?
Oh, no. I think it just... He knew that it always had been an absentee landowner place, and I'm sure the guys before me weren't really running cameras hard and stuff, and like, I mean, most of my lines are like...
And I would have done the same thing. I mean, I think that's respectable what you did there, but like for him to do that with his 11-year-old daughter is stupid.
Yeah, and I would hope he'd feel that way about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's plenty of those. There's other ones like, I mean, this weekend in Kentucky, I dropped Emily and Carter off at a blind, and Harlan and I went to the back, and I was climbing up the tree stand, and she called me and she said, hey, there's 2 white vehicles driving through the middle of our farm. Like right down, they just came past our truck. They're on the grass road coming right to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, my instinct is like my kid and my wife are down there, you know, and like I don't know what she's gonna run into. And so I was like, hey, just keep the phone. I said, you got to hold the phone up like you're recording this. Like you've got to have something that makes it seem like you're documenting this.
Connected.
Yeah. And they were like, yeah, our GPS told us this was public land or whatever. Dude, you drove past 2 barns and like 9 posted signs on the way in. But clearly, if we weren't there, they would have drove right to the back of that property, and there were 6 people in that vehicle to muzzleloader hunt.
Wow.
And they were just deployed on my property with giving no shits about it. And it's like, you know, fortunately we were there. She stopped them. They turned around and they left. I got their license plates, and I'll turn them into the sheriff on that. And I'll just say, hey, listen, I'm not pressing charges, but I want documentation that these guys were on my property. So if it happens again, it's a full press. I'm not messing around at the next time. And they were local guys, so they didn't get turned around. But I guarantee they were like, you know, hey, that guy he's not here. He doesn't live here. Like, I bet we can get back there. Well, we were there, fortunately. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that story makes it around where it's like, hey, they're there more than you think. Or plus I had cameras. Dude, I got 5 pictures of his vehicle by the time he got to Emily. Yeah. Just because I'm swamping.
Well, the cameras have really helped with trespassing. You know what I mean? I think a lot more.
Can't get away with.
That's the most effective sign, frankly, that you can put out there is this property is monitored with cellular cameras.
Dude, people walk right by them, though. They're just, I guess
it does make you think, though. I mean,
it should.
The idea that you could get your picture taken on a piece of properity, and it's sent
been awesome
directly to somebody's cell phone.
Dude, every trespasser, except for one, there was one that, and I think I knew what they were doing. They had dogs collared. I think their dogs ran onto my property. They came in at like 2 a.m. to get their dogs off of my property, which I didn't like, but you know, whatever. I'm not going to stop you from getting your dogs necessarily. And, but every other person on any of my farms, like I could tell you pretty clearly who they were, or I have a license, a license plate on them. Mm-hmm. In some cases, because they're cell cameras, I've called it into the sheriff, and the sheriff has met them at my gate when they're walking out, and they're like, what the hell? And he's like, hey, we already got your picture. As I already took it and sent it to them. They went out, they had the picture. They're like, clearly you're trespassing. Here you are right here. And those people have no idea that they got their photo taken. Sure. They think it's just a normal trail camera because they're not hunters most of the time. Yeah. They think it's just
what is this, voodoo?
I've got one guy just like waving at it. And so like the sheriff shows him, he's like, how'd you get that? And he's like, it goes right to our phones. And the guy's like,
holy shit.
I thought it was I thought it was like magic or whatever. You know? And it's like
through the air?
Yeah.
Where's the wires?
Yeah. So but that's just, they're really good. And I don't like, my Ohio place has public next to it. So I post it heavy on that side. And like, you know, if a guy skirts my line or something, like I'm not that pissy about it. But like, if you walk by several posted signs, clearly it's like, yeah, come on. What are you doing?
Yeah,
it's not that hard. It's like, dude, just stay on that side of the line.
Yeah.
And the number one reason in Ohio, at least now, that I get is, well, you had this road over here, it's just easier to walk. I'm like, yeah, for me. Like, weird. Get the fuck off my property.
Yeah.
I think the line I've used the most, and some people get it, but most don't, is, how would you feel if I just drove up into your front yard? That's what I told Emily to tell those guys. I was like, what would you think if I just drove up my truck in your front yard, just parked it there and said, well, GPS told me to be here?
Well, I wouldn't like it.
They don't know what to say.
I wouldn't like
They're
it.
just like, what? I mean, what? No, I mean, but it's because it's land that they just think that they can do that. But I say it's, you know, you own a front yard, I own 180 acres. Like, that's the difference.
And it sucks because you want to be generous. Like, you want to let people ride their horses during the summer. You want to do these things.
Give them an inch, take a mile.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And it's just, I don't think that most of it is done maliciously. Some is, like those guys in the truck were coming to hunt, like that.
Those are the hard ones to believe. It's like if their intention really was, hey, that guy's out of town, we can get it there and get away with it. Like the fact that 6 of them were like, good idea. That blows my mind.
Yeah, just dumb.
If that's what actually happened, you know.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, but it, you know, in other cases, if it's like somebody riding their horse through, or like their dogs get through there, they're like, well, yeah, but it's just the land. and they just don't understand.
Yeah.
They understand that it's like, I get it, but like, I don't let my dogs run through your front yard.
Yeah. Well, times have changed, you know. Fortunately, unfortunately, you know, there was a time where nobody, there was, you know, it was just fine. People just, that's what it was. Property lines were not as
wasn't a limited
strictly
resource
enforced, and
there was a lot more land and a lot less.
It was just a different world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all deer hunting either. I mean, that's part of it, but just people are just more. It's a liability thing. It's a I don't know. You know,
I mean,
people are just not.
I don't mess with it as much, at least on my properties, but like I've been on several properties where four-wheeling is a big, big issue. People just driving quads and four-wheelers straight through the property. That's a tough thing to stop. I mean, mainly because by the time, even on cell cams, I've had them. By the time I get it to an authority or something, they're long gone. You aren't catching them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other things to deal with there, but yeah, it's just respect the lines and you know, when you have those run-ins with people, it's just, you know, even if you think that you're in the right, you know, sometimes you just got to take the high road and, you know, not
value your life over being right in that situation.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
People do crazy shit.
Yep, just walk away and, you know, whatever.
Break the wrist, walk away.
Yeah. So I say that all in preparation because I'll probably be boiling the next podcast when several people have taken my trail cameras on public land.
Yeah.
But I just kind of set myself up with, I expect it.
Yeah. Cool. Yep.
Well, we appreciate everyone listening to Jared and I just bullshit here for a while.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, it's October 27th if you're listening to this. It's October 29th if you're listening to this. I've probably been messing that up.
Ooh.
Halloween's a couple days away, which means November 1st is there. There's a front coming in. So I would say...
And Jeremy's out of his funk now by the end of this podcast.
I'm out of my funk.
Yeah, so there you go.
I'm ready to kill a deer.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah,
it's time. I shot my bow last night.
Me too.
For a while. I felt great.
Nice.
Yeah, so... Anyways, we appreciate everyone listening to episode 214, and we'll catch y'all in November.
Later.
Take me